Look at that. We got the old theme song going. I told you this was going to be a professional live stream. Professional. Hi, everybody. I got Koa with me here because when I sat down and got my ear monitors in and plugged in and everything, I realized I didn't have a snake. And Koa is the one that I was able to reach from where I was sitting without unplugging my stuff. So that's what we got. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hang on. Let me, we got a bunch of people in already. Glad to see you guys. I'm going to sort of try to scroll and see some people. We got a lot of the Horde of Keepers, bunch of other people in so far. So guys, I've got a new setup here. I've got new hardware and new software for the live stream. And I think it's going to eventually work way better. But there's also stuff that I'm still learning. So we'll get through some glitchy stuff probably. And yeah, and it's probably just more of a learning curve on my end. So anyway, Nicole, welcome to the Horde. Glad you're here. Glad you joined. One of the glitchy things is that it's going to be tougher for me to see the chat until I figure this thing out, because when I'm trying to read chats that have happened earlier, anytime somebody does a new chat, it brings me back down to the bottom. So I got to figure that out. I may have to pop out a different window to look at it, but you guys don't need to know the process here. Let me know how I sound though. How's this sounding for you guys? All right. Here's what I'm drinking, by the way. Oh man, that's so good. I just took my first drink of something that I've never had before. I happen to be in a store that sells fine whiskeys, and I found this. Look at this. Hang on, it'll focus in a second. Moonlight Mayhem. Look at that label. I don't usually buy whiskey for the label. Look, she's being chased by a werewolf. But this definitely was appropriate for Halloween, and it's by Filmland Spirits. They've got a bunch of different whiskeys with different labels like this that are like from a fake, old timey movie, sci-fi type thing or horror or whatever. And so I got that, and it's actually really good whiskey. Yeah. It's a bourbon, and it's not over oaked, which is really nice. I like that a lot. Moonlight Mayhem by Filmland Spirits. Okay. So, there we go. Look at Koa's getting comfortable up here. I pulled Koa out of the cage and I realized he ate probably 5 days ago. I don't know that he's pooped yet. And I just hope it doesn't happen right now. It would be upsetting. So there we go. What else do I need to tell you guys? Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm wearing my Halloween themed hat that was gifted to me by Sonia, who is a member of the Horde of Keepers. It's a very cool hat and appropriate for Halloween. So that's that. And also a good hat for snakes. I think it's got a sturdy brim, and Koa at least is enjoying it. So what else is happening? We don't have Amy here, by the way. At this point, we might later, but she's been sick all week, so now she has to work. She's getting better, but she has tons of work to catch up on. So we may not see her for this live stream, unfortunately. Let me see if I can scroll up and Okay. I think this chat might work okay. For those of you who are new to the live stream, I might say this a couple times, but if you have a question, super chat it. If you want me to see it. If you don't care if I see it or not, there are a lot of people who know a lot about snakes in the chat, so you can ask your question and look for someone to respond and answer it. But if you want me to answer it specifically, super chat it, and I should see it. But this is new software, so let me just open to YouTube real quick. Scroll there. Because it's the first time I'm using this in a real live stream. We tested it out with the Horde the other day for a bit, but I think I'll see super chats on this software. But for now, I'm going to switch back and forth to YouTube just in case. All right, it's good to see you guys. Glad everybody's in the chat. So my point though is that if you have a comment or a question that you really want me to see, super chat it because it'll highlight it and then I'll see it. Otherwise, I don't see most of the chat until tomorrow. I'll look at the chat, but most of it flies by and I don't get a chance to read it because I can't read while I'm talking. There's a lot of YouTubers that it seems like during a live stream, they're able to monitor the chat. My brain doesn't work that way. I don't understand how people can talk and be doing a thing and also actively reading. I can't. I gotta focus too hard on reading. It's too much of a thing for me to be doing other things. Um, okay. So we have a lot of questions from the Horde of Keepers. Big Q&A today, and we're going to show off a bunch of snakes. I'm feeding a ton of snakes tonight, and we might later in the live stream, we might feed a couple while we're in the live stream. I think Douglas is eating tonight, so probably feed him later. That's way down the line, though. So look forward to that. All right. Let me just... okay. Azara, I just saw your super chat on YouTube, but will it show it to me here? Hang on. Maybe this program is maybe this program is it might be behind a little bit. Let me see if I can. You guys just give me a minute to figure out my... Okay, so oh, that's such a bummer. It's not showing me super chats in this program. So I'm going to keep the YouTube page up so that I can see those. Azara says, super test, hit the like button. There's got to be a way that this happens because I can do this. I can show that Fallon says, "Man, now I want some whiskey." But if it's not showing me the super chats, then I can't. Hang on. I'm sure there's a way to make this happen. Crazy. All right, we'll figure it out. Okay. I'm seeing that my mom is in. I just saw that on the YouTube page. You know what I need is I need two screens. Oh, here's mom. Hang on. Hey, Horde and Bob, your dad and I are watching on the big screen. I just checked in here so I could let you know. Oh, okay. Thanks, Mom. Good to see you. All right. And one thing that I'm noticing is it's way too big when I show it on screen. There's got to be a way to fix that too. So I'll worry about that later, though. Everybody's saying hi to my mom. Okay, Hog Strictors, thanks for the super chat. Hog Strictors says, super chat test, GRP live stream, best day of the month. Oh, thanks, David. Appreciate that. Now, let me see if I can find your comment. Nope. Hang on. So annoying. It's omitting the super chat comments for some reason. Darkside Morphs, thanks for your super chat. No scotch here, but some tasty IPA. Nice. Nice. Telecaster, thanks for your super chat. That was a good one. $19. Appreciate that. It's actually $20. $19.99. No questions tonight. Just wanted to keep up the. Just want to say, keep up the good work. Best beard in the game. Aw, thanks, Telecaster. Appreciate that. I wish I could show you guys the super chats. It'd be really great. Okay. Here we go. Let's get going with this Halloween Q&A. It's really just a regular Q&A, but I think there's one or two Halloween questions in there, making it a Halloween themed Q&A. All right. Here we go. Azara, who we were just talking about, who's in the chat right now, says, if the inspector was a Halloween treat, which one would he be? I'm saying that we're talking about the inspector. I would say he is a lollipop with a like a hot pepper with a ghost pepper in the middle. Because at his core, he's a really spicy snake, but it never comes out. Like, he's never bitten me, but he gets real sassy with me sometimes, and he loves to fight me, but he doesn't use his teeth. So I think deep down in his core, he wants to be a spicy snake. Yeah. Crisis Corp says, what python species do you think is the hardest to work with? So I can tell you from the ones that I have a bunch of different species of python. None of them are hard to work with. There are tricky things with ball pythons, and sometimes, occasionally, a rare ball python will go off food. Doesn't happen with all of them, but it's more common with ball pythons than others. And then things like retics, you just have to watch that food response. But I would say probably, and those of you who have more experience than I, tell me if I'm wrong here, but my guess is that like a rock python, an African rock python, would be more difficult to work with. They are large and don't have the most docile reputation. I don't think I've ever handled. I have handled a baby rock python, a baby, never an adult though. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just going based on the reputation, and as we know, reputations for many snake species are wrong. But yeah, I'd say that. Okay, Chris says, I had to paraphrase this. A lot of these questions from Patreon come in as very long explanations, and I have to paraphrase them for the live stream. So my apologies to those who spent a lot of time writing things to me, and I had to cut it down. So Chris was concerned that their snake hadn't shed since they got it 8 weeks ago, and then a couple days later, they updated and said, spoke too soon, came home from work to a pink belly and blue eyes. So yeah, people get real concerned if their snake hasn't shed, and it's not something to be concerned about, really. Snakes will shed when they're ready. And usually if the snake is young, we're talking about like ball pythons, most pythons, if they're young and you're feeding them appropriately, they'll shed once every 6-ish weeks, but it might be before that. It might be beyond that. It might take a little longer. It's not something you need to worry too much about. The only exception would be if you're feeding the snake, if you're way under feeding the snake and you're not seeing it shed at all for long periods of time, that may be a sign that you're not feeding the snake enough. It's not growing, they shed for a couple of reasons, but the main reason that they shed is to allow for growth. Okay. Let me just check this. Great. Okay. We're getting into this, you guys. I'm going to show you some of the babies in Freya's new clutch, by the way. So, Freya maternally incubated a clutch of eggs. I'm making a full video about that, about one of the babies that hatched. And it was just a baby that I made an X on the egg to mark it. And whatever baby hatched out of that egg, I'm following it. I'll make a full video. But she maternally incubated these snakes. They all hatched, and they're all, some of them are shed. So I'll show you a couple of those because they're real pretty. Okay, we're not going to do that yet, though. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, Rana says, curious about how maternal incubation ends. Oh, this is a great this is a great timing for this question. How maternal incubation ends. Does the mom realize the eggs are all empty and then leaves? Does she wait for the eggs to disintegrate? What happens to the mom once the eggs hatch? Thank you. Good question, Rana. So what I used to think happened, and I've said this in a old video before. I remember saying this because I thought it was funny that pythons are really protective of their eggs. They'll protect the eggs with their life, and then as soon as they hatch, they kind of go, "What are all these babies doing, ruining my eggs?" And then they leave. Right? That was kind of my guess at what happens. I no longer think that that's what happens because I've seen Freya twice now. I've let her maternally incubate twice now, and she does hang out with the babies, and she's kind of protective of them when they first hatch. So my guess is that in the wild, probably what happens is, when the babies hatch, there's about 7 to 10 days or 11 days or something before their first shed. And prior to that, they kind of hatch, and then just a few days later, they go into shed. And so they're just sitting there. They're not doing much, and they're super vulnerable. So I don't think they're leaving the nest before that first shed. And my guess is that the mama isn't either. The mama's probably staying around the nest. One time during Freya's first maternal incubation, all the babies had crawled out of the eggs, or not all of them, but most of them were. And I wanted to check and see like how many eggs are there actually. So I'm kind of moving Freya around, and she got annoyed with me. So she went to the other side and went into her hide on the other side. So that I would stop messing with her. And then I did my thing with the babies, gave them all a count and everything. And then as soon as my hands were out of there, because she, by the way, she went into her hide, but then stuck her head out and was watching me the whole time. As soon as my hands were away, she went right back over and wrapped around those babies. So that told me that she was intentionally watching and was allowing me to do my thing. She didn't want me to mess with her, but she was ready to get right back on them once I was done, which I thought was pretty cool, pretty interesting. So she definitely doesn't wait for the eggs to disintegrate, though. I think my guess is that those babies leave the nest once they shed for the first time. They're ready to go. They're hatched, pretty much ready for life. They can crawl, they can find food, they can do everything. And good luck to them. That's kind of the deal. And so I think they shed and then take off, and then mom just goes about her regular business. and and also, the den, wherever she is to lay those eggs and incubate those eggs, that's not like a permanent den. She's just going to leave those eggs there that have that are now empty, and she'll go find another place to live. So that is basically how that works, from a guy that has never been to Africa to see ball pythons in the wild. That's my guess at how things work. All right. Let's take a look at a Brettles python, of which I've never been to Australia to see a Brettles python in the wild. Man, that would be a fun. I mean, I want to go to Australia anyway, but Brettles pythons are so difficult to find. They live in this little region in and around Alice Springs, and really difficult to find. I'd love to be able to find one. I think Koa's going into shed. He's kind of dull looking at the moment. but he's a handsome guy, and he's growing, and he's becoming more confident. His confidence has slowly come on. He's been shy for most of his time here, and as he gets some size, he becomes a little bit more bold. Hey, bud, I'm gonna put you back. How about that? Instead of my hat, can we just go back in your cage? Hang on a sec. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Those of you who are just joining us, glad you're here. You know, I'm planning for, I'm just going to let him crawl in. So I'm going to sit here for a minute until he does his thing. I'm planning a 24-hour live stream. And I think I mentioned it before that I was thinking about doing that. The channel's going to hit 100,000 subscribers in like a month. And so I want to do something crazy to mark that milestone, and like an appreciation for the fans, for the folks that enjoy the channel. So we're going to do a 24-hour live stream, and I'm in the midst of sort of planning that because I'm going to have guests and I've got to have stuff to do. I can't just sit here and talk for 24 hours. I mean, I kind of will be, but if I do it at a high level, I'll lose my voice halfway through, you know? So I'm going to have guests, like actual physical guests, be in the room. And then we'll have guests over video and such like that. And I'm going to live stream for 24 hours, which is kind of ridiculous, but I got a brand new chair. It's so comfortable that I feel like, I mean, I got it specifically for that. Is this a chair that I could sit in for basically 24 hours? It's not like I'm not going to get up, but for an entire day, I'm going to be awake and mostly sitting in this chair, which I'm a little nervous about. Okay, let me check this YouTube page real quick for super chats. I just saw one, but let me just scroll up real quick. Okay. Azara, thanks for the super chat. Azara says, are there behavioral differences between maternally incubated eggs and traditionally incubated ones? You know, that's a good question. I don't know, but I tend to think probably. My thought is that the babies, I've only done it twice, and both times I've had babies who come out completely calm and confident, and they also come out bigger. They seem to be a little bit bigger. The ones that I'm weighing right now are, you know, baby snakes usually weigh in at about 65, 70 grams, something like that. As they shed, I weigh them and you know, input them into my system. And I've had 4 out of 8 shed so far, and they're all right around 85 grams. So that could be a coincidence, or it could be because they were maternally incubated and they took longer to hatch. They took, you know, from the time that the first one pipped to the time that the last one crawled out of its egg, 9 days. So that's weird because usually they pip right around a couple days from one another because they're sitting side by side in a tray in an incubator, and they're all at exactly the same temperature. So as it is with maternal incubation, is you got a pile of eggs. So let's say in this case, it was 3 levels basically in the pile, and the bottom ones pipped first, and then the middle ones pipped a few days after that, and the top ones pipped a few days after that. The one that I put an X on, the egg that I X'd like right when Freya laid it, was at the very top, and that was the last one to pip. And I was getting nervous because I thought, man, is this egg not going to hatch? And then I don't have my video. So, but it's great. It hatched, and the snake is awesome, and it's cool. So okay, we're getting to the next question. Hang on. Okay. Dan Weber, this is a great question. In the spirit of the season, do you have a favorite horror/scary movie? Yes, I have a few favorites because I like scary movies. My go-to movie that affected me as a child in my childhood. Like, it affected me as far as this is such a good movie and I really enjoyed it, but also I'm so scared right now. Like, I saw this and now I'm so scared and I'm a little bit scarred from it. Was Poltergeist, and Poltergeist 2 as well. Those were great. And but currently I usually list as my favorite horror movie, it's a more recent one, Cabin in the Woods. And it's so clever, and it's not the scariest movie, but there are so many funny parts. I'm a big Joss Whedon. Well, I want to say this carefully. I'm a big fan of the work of Joss Whedon. I can't say that I'm a big Joss Whedon fan because, unfortunately, we learned in the last several years about his behavior on set and such like that, and it's really unfortunate. Sometimes people who do really good work are not necessarily the best people. But I am a fan of his work, and Cabin in the Woods is just great. So that's that. There are so many though that are really good. Kayla, thanks for the super chat. Let me know if you have a question to go along with that. I'm just going to scroll up and see if I missed any. Just so you guys know, those of you who just jumped in, for some reason, I am not able to highlight these super chats on my system, which hopefully I can figure this out. I'm just using a new software for live streaming. Okay. I'm going to write this down really quick so I don't forget the problems that I have to solve before the next live stream. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. Rashid says, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the best way to measure enclosure temps for a ball python. Surface versus ambient. What spots to measure the temp at? What spots matter? And which one should I target between 88 to 92 on the warm side and 75 to 80 on the cool side? Yeah, so first of all, I don't even measure ambient, really. There's going to be people especially in forums, that talk about ambient so much, and I don't even really measure it. To measure the ambient temperature, you would need a thermometer up the side of the enclosure, somewhere like midway through on the enclosure, or like dangling down, just hanging. Nobody does this, but this would be the way to measure the ambient temperature in the middle of the enclosure, just floating, right? But that's not where snakes are. And snakes are really good at whatever temperature they're sitting on, that temperature moves to their body, or whatever temperature is coming down on their back goes right through their body. And by the way, up everything else. So when you have a pile of snakes sitting together, I know this because I've temp gunned big female ball pythons and seen that they're all sitting at the same temperature, which is the ground temperature. It's really interesting with Freya maternally incubating, I temp gun those eggs, and they are often the same temperature. They don't stay the same temperature all the time, but at different times when I temp gun them, those top ones, which generally should be cooler and oftentimes are cooler, will be the same temperature as the bottom ones. I don't know why that is. I think it's something Freya's doing, but it's crazy. Anyway, the point is that for me, the ambient temperature of the air is not as important. If I have an enclosure where my warm side, I've got a heat element that's creating enough warmth on the warm side to make it, let's say, 88 degrees, that air temperature is going to be fine for them. On the cool side, if it's 78 to 80 degrees, the air temperature, on the surface, the air temperature isn't going to be freezing cold or super hot, So the important thing for me is to take a temp gun and figure out what my warm side is. Inside the hide, it's going to be a little bit cooler. So your on top of the hide is going to be hotter, right? Because that's closer to the heat source if you're using a overhead heat source, and so that might be a few degrees warmer. And then you've got your ground area that'll be maybe a couple degrees cooler than the top of the hide. And then if you temp gun inside the hide, that's going to be even cooler still. But remember that the top of the hide is warmer, so the ceiling, so if the snake crawls in there, and if it's a appropriately fitting hide where the snake can touch the entire thing, even the top, they're going to get that top warmth. But they're going to be fine as long as you're like, let's say you're 86 degrees in temp gunning the ground inside the hide, and it's 88 right outside the hide, and it's 92 on top of the hide. Like, that's all fine. You don't have to be they're not that touchy. As long as you're generally in that area, it's gonna be good. Just make sure you're not 100 degrees on top of your hide, you know, or 60 degrees. I mean, don't even be 70 degrees in inside the hide, as long as you're in that general area of 88 to 90, you're gonna be just fine. And then monitor your snake, because I've talked about this in videos before, that your snake will tell you what they prefer. If they're spending all their time on the cool side, that means that it's probably a little bit warm on the warm side. So bring it down a notch. If they're spending all their time on the warm side, it might be a little bit too cool in there. They're trying to constantly warm up. So you can adjust things a little bit. Keep it within the general parameters, but you can adjust their individual preference based on what their behavior is. Uh, Boy, I feel like I spent an hour on that question. What are we, 9 p.m. over here Pacific time? Oh, it's only 5:30. Okay, I think we're all right. Where are we? Here we go. Liz. Oh, let me check. Hang on. Let me just check before I say Liz's thing. There we go. See, I don't want to miss these super chats, so I'm gonna. Okay. I'm seeing some. Kayla, thanks for the super chat. Oh, you sent a question right above it. Hang on. Let me see if I can find this. What can you use if weaned rats or jumbo mice are unavailable? Use two rat pups, or two large rats. I mean, sorry, two large mice. Two rat pups or two large mice. That is just fine. Chris, thanks for the super chat. Did you leave a question? Hang on. I'm seeing you're saying when able. I do have a question. Okay. Uh, I'm looking for it. I'll try to find your question, Chris, if you asked it. But I'm going to get to Kayla's super chat. Oh, you got the icy. You super chatted that again. Okay. Uh, yeah. Darkside Morph says maybe two small mice. That would be much too small. Two large mice actually. Or medium, large or medium. Two large mice would be a little bit more food than a jumbo mouse probably, but not by much. Doesn't have to be exact. Uh, oh, okay. So Chris, you're asking about Olapots, which I don't use. Two of the three of them are growing things. Do I wipe those off? Sure. Yeah. I mean, depending on it, especially if it's growing mold, you don't want it to. I would probably clean them off. You know, because you don't want anything harmful growing. But I don't have experience with Olapots. I think they're a cool idea, though. These are what those are. For those of you who don't know, they're clay pots that you use to water plants. Basically, you bury the little pot in plant soil, and then just pour water into that, and it seeps the water out regularly. And it's used in reptile cages to keep the humidity up, which I think is a cool idea. It's just an idea that I've never used before. Okay, did I get all the super chats? This is the time that we really need Amy to be here. 'Cause but I think I'll be fine though. It's actually looking at the super chats on YouTube is much easier than looking at them even in the old program that I was using. Uh, so here we go. Okay, so Liz is asking for bioactive setups. How often and what should I be cleaning beyond spot cleaning and the water dish? That's a great question. Because people are often confused about this, about, how do you clean a bioactive cage? Some people say that you don't have to clean it at all. I was talking to Garrett Hartle on the phone yesterday, and he was telling me that when he was a lad, well, long time ago, he went to a guy's house that had retics, and this was before bioactive was really a thing. And he said that he had bioactive cages, but basically his bioactive was the retic living on its own poop. He was like, "Yeah, I just never clean them, and it's by the bugs. I just let the bugs take care of it," which is awful. Anyway, let me answer this question that was asked. So generally, if you have a good bioactive situation, not just a retic living in its own poop, your cleanup crew will handle most of the stuff, but you spot clean, obviously. And then what I do is I clean the hides, especially when, I get to look at the hides when a snake poops in there. So I'm usually lifting them to check for poop. And then when I see that there's literally something on the hide, I pull it and clean it. And then water dishes get cleaned. I think I'm cleaning water dishes about every 2 or 3 times that I change water. I just don't want any there shouldn't be any slippery feeling in a water dish. So if you, and I usually feel that with my finger when I change waters. I'll feel a water dish if it looks like it might need to be cleaned. If I feel anything in there, then I'm cleaning it, because you don't want stuff growing. But that's basically it as far as cleaning. I'm cleaning the glass, hides occasionally. Oh, if there's a shelf, a lot of times I'll pee on the shelf and you'll clean that. It's just anything visible, anything visible, and then the water dish regularly. Okay, Tamara says a friend offered me this 4-year-old black-headed python. Cool. Being in Australia, you need a license to have one snake. And if you want more, you need it for educational purpose. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, because there's a lot of people in Australia who have a lot of snakes. I did know that there was a licensing that was required, but I didn't realize it was separate if you have one versus more than one. My question is, I'm 52 years old, never had a reptile, always had a fear of them until I started watching your videos. Oh, that's cool. And started to see them differently. Oh, that's awesome. Love hearing that. He looks like he's the same size as Banjo. Do they make good first pets? So yeah, Banjo is. We might see Banjo later. I'm covering up his cage. Let's see if he's out. Right, he is not out at the moment. But yes, I would say. I think, like I say, for any snake, any reptile, it's an exotic pet basically. And so my feeling is always become as much of an expert in that species as you can, so that you understand the care requirements and things like that. But as long as you're providing a black-headed python with the necessary heat that they need, they also like to cool down. My black-headed pythons don't just sit in the heat all the time. But and then feeding, everybody seems to have a different strategy for feeding black-headed pythons. But for me, I like to feed them. I want them to have about the same amount of food that any python would have, that's their size, any species of python would have. But where in just about any other python, I'm feeding them once every 2 weeks, a big honking meal once every 2 weeks. A black-headed python, I'm feeding that much food, but broken up over every about 4 to 5 days. So they're getting about 2 meals a week, but they're small meals. And one of the reasons is simply that black-headed pythons' heads don't stretch. Same with womas. Blackheads and womas, their heads don't stretch like other python heads. and they have a fast metabolism designed to burn through low calorie food, low fat food quickly. They're feeding on mostly reptiles, and so they're successful. They're very successful at catching them compared to all other pythons in the world. These guys are catching stuff maybe every day. They're catching stuff, but at least a few times a week they're getting some sort of meal, and but the meal is low nutritional value. Other reptiles don't have high nutritional value. So my snakes get a lot of fish and birds. They also get rodents, but I'm not feeding them a full diet of rodents because it's too fatty for their systems. Boy, I get into the weeds on that, answering that question. My answer is yes. They do make a good first reptile pet. Just learn as much as you can about them. And you're in the country where there's a lot of people that have black-headed pythons, so you could probably find people live in person that could give you a lot of good information about them. I know there's a lot of people in Australia too that when they're keeping snakes, they're able to keep them outside, in a cage outside, and just have them subject to the normal weather of Australia. So depending on where you're at and what the situation is, you might be able to do that, as long as you don't have anything that can, get to them. Predators can't get to them. That might be a cool idea, though. Let's see. Red Sonia is asking, when are you and Dave going to go to the Dominican Republic? We're going to be there relatively soon. There's going to be videos from that trip. Dave announced that on my channel. I hadn't said a word until Dave said it in the Tinley video. I guess Future Bob could have edited that out if it was that much of a problem. But we're headed to the Dominican Republic, and there will be videos out on that in the next couple months, I would think. But I'm looking forward to that trip. There's a number of species that we're looking for, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. So, let me flip to this other page. Oh, look at this. We got super chats. I won't miss your super chat, you guys. I will eventually flip to the page and then see all of them. Hang on. Here we go. Let me get to the most recent one. Tanya, let's see. My ball python refuses to eat anything but medium mice, so he gets 6 at a time. Oh my gosh. Seems to be working okay for him. Will it harm him? No, it won't. Let's see, 6 medium mice at a time. So, Tanya, I would suggest feeding him 1 medium mouse and then offer him a jumbo mouse. So it sounds like he's on mice. He's not going to take rats, maybe, or it might take him a while to take rats. But once he's in that feeding frenzy sort of thing where he's like, oh yeah, I'm getting more food, offer him that jumbo mouse. So at least, if this is a male, so the amount of food that he should be on, I'm assuming it's an adult. The amount of food that he should be on should be equal to about a small rat every 2 weeks. So if you feed him 2 jumbo mice, that's equal to about a small rat. So I would try to get him eating those jumbo mice just by starting with what he's used to, and then give him the bigger prey item. Try that. But no, it's not going to harm him. It's just, it's way more expensive for you, and it's a pain to sit there and feed 6. I don't even know what the weight of 6 medium mice is, if that's about equal to a small rat. I don't know. I'm curious though, and I'm going to go into my freezer later and figure it out. Liz, thanks for the super chat. Liz says, perfect. Thank you. And your advice on how to handle my new snake on the last live worked great. She seems very happy. No more hissing or balling up. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that worked. I don't remember what I said, but it seems like I said something that worked. So that's great. That makes me happy. Chris, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. Just wanted to contribute and say thanks for this, for the great vids on YouTube. Oh, that's so nice, Chris. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy them. Thanks for that super chat. You guys, I'm sorry that I'm not able to highlight these super chats on this live stream. AP, thanks for the super chat. Is it normal to get a bunch of springtails in the water dish? Yep, it sure is. Yeah, that's not really a problem. They're just they're not even dead in the water dish. You can, I mean, if you dump the water and then flush it down the toilet, they're going to die. But I think you can just kind of splash them out if you want to. But it shows that you have tons of springtails in your cage, and it's fine. It is just fine. So let me make sure I didn't miss any of these. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the Patreon. Let me see if I, hang on. Oh, let me get a snake. Who should I get? I haven't had a snake in a while. I put Koa back, and then I was just focused on this these questions. Let's hang on. Nobody's even out right now. Handsome Dan is actually out. You know what? I'm going to get Damara because she's sitting in a hide over here. She's out of her cage. She's sitting in a hide on the floor, and I got to put her away eventually anyway. So let's just bring Damara over. Hang on a second. Unplug these ear things and take them with me. Oh, and in fact, you know what? Can I switch cameras? Hang on. Let's see if I can switch cameras. Oh. I can't. It's telling me I can't. That's such a bummer. All right. It's another thing that I got to write down that I have to figure out. Okay. All right. 1 second. Okay. Here's Miss Damara. She's been out all day. Not really out all day. She's been out of her tub all day, but she immediately went to her favorite hide in the room, and she's been sitting there the whole time. Okay. Here we go. Next question. Damara's going to help me with it. Okay, Thomas is asking, what, if anything, did you learn about the Horde as a group or make an observation when we got together at Tinley? So that he's referring to a get together that he attended with a number of other people who are in the Midwest. We had a little Horde get together, and you know, something that I observe every time I do a Horde get together, it's always different people. I mean, there's some that are regulars that are able to, you know, go to different things in California and Minnesota and whatever. But it's usually new people meeting new people, but everybody acts like they're old friends, which I love seeing. It's cool. And I guess many of them probably know each other because they're all chatting online anyway. So they sort of know the online version of themselves. But I would say that even though, you know, there's a lot of people that aren't the most gregarious personality, you know, they're a little more introverted, and even the introverted people find it very easy to converse with other members of the Horde. They're just really nice, easy people to get along with, which I love. It's really cool. I'm going to put her on my neck because I don't like this arm situation. Hey, Mama, can I just move you? Come here. This has become real awkward for some reason. Okay. All right. Here we go. She's sitting on my ear monitor cord, and so she could real easily pull those out. We'll see what happens. Okay, Phil says Maxine is 16 months old right now. That's Phil's snake, is Maxine. So you guys probably figured that out, that he wasn't talking about like his wife or something. That'd be weird. Maxine is 16 months old right now. Will she ever recognize me? Like crawl to me? I mean, so Phil, I mean, probably not. Most of mine don't. You know, you see, you know, stuff that I post and other people post. You know, if I catch it on camera, when let's say a snake like Douglas crawls right out onto my hand, because he often does it. So I'm going to post that because it's cool, right? I'm not going to post every time some other snake tongue flicked my hand and then went the other way, because that's what they normally do. You know, it's not really in a snake's nature to want to crawl onto your hand. However, you can get them to do that. Sometimes they'll do it. And especially if it's like, if that's the way they know that they can get out and you know, go do what they want to do, then they'll do it more often. You know, my snakes, you know, Damara will crawl onto my lap to get to the ground. You know, she's in a tub that's up a little bit higher. And so if I'm sitting in a chair in front of her tub, she'll crawl out of her tub onto my lap, but then she takes off, you know, like right now she's crawling to the other side of she's crawling over the back of the chair so that she can take off. So it's not like snakes don't have any real desire for the companionship. They're never, my snakes are never looking at me going, oh, I really want to hang out with that guy, you know? So, my answer is possibly not. Maxine may never choose to crawl onto your hand, but I'm sure that she trusts you, and she probably doesn't freak out when you pick her up, you know? And she also might crawl onto your hand at some point. It depends on the situation, and it depends on the individual snake. I have lots of snakes though that would probably never choose to crawl onto my hand. I have many that do and many that don't. So it's just kind of an individual thing. All right, let me see if I can switch over here. All right. Okay, great. So next question from the Horde of Keepers. We've got a lot of new Horde members, I'm noticing. So welcome. If you're new to the Horde in the last couple of weeks, welcome. Glad you're there. The Horde of Keepers, Thundercrack. I rarely do the Thundercrack anymore, but there should be a Thundercrack every time the Horde of Keepers is mentioned. So now we have that sound effect at least. Okay. Jenna McKeegan, good to see you. Thanks for the super chat. Jenna says, I got my new female bread light from Riley this week. Oh, congrats. That's great. I had her reserved since mom was gravid, Sally, and she has polka dots on her neck. Oh, that's fantastic. Congrats. Riley is a great guy to get a Brettles Python from. And I'm glad you got her. That's really cool. Very exciting. Breadlight are great snakes. Those of you who were here in the beginning of the live stream saw mine. Okay, Tanya, who we were just talking to earlier, says, I have a ball python and a Mexican black king snake. Due to other pets in the house, I can't let either of them free roam. I would like to set up an enclosed playpen so they've got room to stretch their legs, as it were. Stretch their legs, yeah. Obviously, they would go in one at a time, but I was told by the vet not to let them share the same space because of the possible transmission of viruses. They are both perfectly healthy, but she said either one could be a carrier. Your thoughts on this? I don't have room for two separate playpens. Yeah, so technically your vet is correct. If a snake was sick and they were in the same area as another snake, they could potentially infect that snake. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out what Damara's doing. Oh, she's on my lap. She's literally on my leg, and I didn't know. She's figuring out her own way down. So yes, your vet is correct. However, my snakes, as you probably know, they're in the same space all the time. I have lots of snakes free roaming. They're either actually physically together, or they're, one is in a hide and then they crawl out and then another one might crawl in. And I just make sure that my snakes are all very healthy. Any snake that I suspect is a carrier of something, I wouldn't let them free roam. But also, you don't always know. It is a risk. And anytime you're free roaming snakes or doing something outside the cage, there is a risk involved. And so it's just whether that risk, whether the benefit outweighs the risk. And in my opinion, for my snakes, the benefit outweighs the risk. And knock on wood, I haven't had a problem with it. I haven't dealt with, an outbreak of respiratory infections or anything like that as a result of snakes free roaming, or ever. Like, I haven't ever. I've had snakes that have had respiratory infections in the past, but it hasn't moved on to the rest of the animals, So it's something that I think about and I'm aware of with my snakes. I'm very aware of their health, and I make sure that if there's anything that I suspect, that I'm not allowing that snake to, free roam in spaces that other snakes would be. So, but good call that you don't want to free roam a Mexican black king snake with another snake, because they are snake eaters. Really cool snakes, though. Kayla says, can you shout out Kip? He's jealous beard buds. Oh, hey, Kip. Is Kip trying to grow a beard? Is that what we're shouting out? Best of luck with your beard, Kip. It's just, you know what it is? The secret to growing a beard: stop shaving, and then don't even worry about it. Just let it grow. And when you think it looks terrible and you need to shave it because it looks so bad, keep growing it. It's just an awkward phase. There's going to be like 3 months worth of an awkward phase in your beard. Just keep growing it. It'll go. All right. Brian says, this question kind of leads in from the last one. Brian says, I got a new boa. How long should I quarantine him? After his quarantine, would it be okay to let him free roam with my ball pythons? So yes, after he's quarantined and he's healthy, but introducing a boa to a room full of pythons is tricky. And I almost didn't keep Handsome Dan just because of that. I didn't want to have a boa in the same room as my pythons. Boas can be carriers of IBD, body inclusion disease, something like that. And which is pretty rough, but it affects pythons way worse than it affects boas. So they could be a carrier of it, pass it on to your pythons, and wipe out your pythons. And so it's important to quarantine them for a long time. I would say 3 to 6 months, and get multiple tests for stuff, including IBD. IBD, that's right? Am I right about that? Somebody put it in the chat. So with Handsome Dan, he got tested twice, and I think I had him in quarantine for 3 months. I was pretty confident that he was very healthy, but I think it's risky bringing a boa into a room full of pythons. You got to be really careful that they're not carrying anything. Lindsay asks, what's your best advice to people who plan to do breeding in the future? I would say it kind of depends on what you're planning to breed. But let's say you're planning to breed ball pythons. First of all, just understanding that there are way too many ball pythons out there right now. And so what that means is that a lot of times breeders that are new have a hard time selling their snakes because they don't have a built-in uh, customer base, basically. So make sure that you know how you're going to uh, rehome slash sell your snakes if you're going to breed them. And a lot of people say, yeah, inclusion body disease, IBD. Yeah. Thanks, guys, for that. So I would say that a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to sell them on Morph Market." Well, a lot of times they sit on Morph Market for a long time, so you still need to sort of have a base of people that you could potentially sell to. Um, so that's my biggest advice. And then if you're just in general saying, I think it'd be interesting to breed reptiles, I would say get into a species that is not as saturated right now at the moment as ball pythons are. You know, um, that's what I would say about that. And also, there's a big mistake that I've seen a lot of people make, which is they have a normal ball python and a Mojave, and they breed those snakes, and then they really have a hard time selling them because there's no breeder that wants a snake that's not genetically really cool, um like Damara. If I bred Damara's a pinstripe, so if I bred Damara with a male that was only like one gene or something like that, it would be hard to sell that snake on those babies on Morph Market, because most of the people on Morph Market are looking for really genetically cool snakes. So even though they would be really inexpensive snakes, they wouldn't sell. So then you've got to find local customers or something like that. So it's tricky. It's tricky, especially now. It's tricky. The market's going to go back up for ball pythons, but right now it's excuse me, it's fairly saturated. So um, not the greatest time, I would say, to start clutches of ball pythons if you're brand new at it. Um, but maybe you're raising some snakes up, and who knows what happens in 2 or 3 years with the market. Could be much better in the future, because it does go up and down. Traditionally, it's gone up and down, but then there was this massive spike because of COVID, and then now we're seeing a correction from that. So it'll get back to normal soon, though. All right, let's see where we're at. Okay, H&K Creations says, we live in Arizona and have a hard time keeping her enclosure. I must have cut this one. We live in Arizona, have a hard time keeping her enclosure humid, even with cocoa husk. Average humidity is 45 to 55%. I added a small humidifier, but we can't get it any higher than 60 to 65% most of the time. We do have a humid hide made and ready. Should we put it in her enclosure now or when she goes into blue? Any advice? So this is a new snake. This was a long one that I cut down. This is a new snake, and the snake shed once when they first got it, and it was a bad shed, probably because it was kept in low humidity before it showed up. But 60 to 65% humidity is not bad. Even 55% humidity is not bad. But some ball pythons are going to have a rough shed, and some won't. It just depends on the individual snake whether they're good at 55% humidity or not. But regardless of that, whether you're at 45% normally or 65% normally, when you see the snake going into shed, offer that humid hide, and that should help them have a good shed. So that's the time. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't give them a humid hide all the time. There's no need for that. And sometimes it could it could get moldy. I'm pouring some more of this Moonlight Mayhem that I'm going to show you this bottle, because if you weren't here in the beginning to see this bottle, you got to see it. This is my Halloween themed Hang on. All right, focus. Focus, camera. There we go. My Halloween themed bottle of bourbon, which I'm quite enjoying. See if we can get Damara back up here so she's on camera again. And then I'm going to look on the YouTube page for super chats. Give me just a minute. I got to flip over to that. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Okay. Tanya says, can my king snake carry that IBD thing? Is it a test my regular exotics vet can do? Yes, your regular exotics vet can test for all sorts of diseases, but I don't believe king snakes are normal carriers of inclusion body disease. That's more of a boa thing. But I'm saying that without really knowing what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure that they're not a common carrier of that, but I don't know for sure. And I'm just wrestling with my snake. Hang on 1 second. There we go. We'll see if we can keep Damara relatively happy right here. Hi, Mama. Hi, Mama. All right. Oh, we're still on super chats here. Kalanya. Kalanya, am I right about that? I bet I said that right. Kalanya, thanks for the super chat. Oh, Kay from H&K Creations on Patreon. Arbella looks to have healthy scales, but when she's moving around, I feel lifting scales. Is this normal? You know, she might be a little bit dry. You might be feeling dryness. You know, hang on. I just really screwed up my view. Sometimes when a snake is going into shed, you'll feel sort of more individual scales a little bit. So that might be what you're feeling. But again, you know, if your snake is between 45 and 65%, especially 65% lately, they're probably not that dry unless they're actively in shed right now, you know. Also, what you're feeling and saying seems like lifting scales might just be normal. So I'm not sure. It's hard to say. Hang on. You have some other questions here. We're going to get back to those in 1 second. I saw that Phil just sent a super chat. Hey, Phil, thanks for that. Can ball python free roam with a corn snake? I mean, sure, technically, yes, but I don't know that I would free roam a corn snake generally. I guess it depends on your room. I've always said that if I had colubrids, I probably wouldn't free roam them because they're just smaller, they're a little wilier, they're easier to just get lost. If you have a room that is, you know, devoid of most furniture, you know, I still have a lot of stuff kind of in here, and I'm able to keep an eye on where all my snakes are at all times. But if I had a colubrid whipping around, it might make things more challenging. So for me, I probably wouldn't free roam a corn snake. But your ball python and your corn snake are not going to attack and kill each other. You know, I also personally, I don't mix the species. So right now I have Handsome Dan is on top of this cage. He's on the back on the other side, but he's been sitting there all day. And Damara's been sitting on the floor over here. I know that they're not going to meet. Handsome Dan is never going to crawl down to the floor. He never has. And Damara could try to crawl up there, but it's been a long time since she's tried to do something like that. So they're not going to meet when they're out. And generally, you know, like if Handsome Dan is up on top of these cages, I'm not going to let the retics free roam in this room because they like to roam up there too. If they want to come out and free roam, I'll put them in the snake wall room, you know, to sort of keep them separated. And that's just, it's not because I think they're going to kill each other. It's just that they wouldn't meet in the wild anyway. So I just have sort of decided that I'm not going to have them have a bunch of species, you know, different species free roaming together. So that is that. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anything here before I get back to HNK Creations questions. Okay, so we answered that about the humid hide. Also, do you ever come to Arizona and have horde events here? You know, that might be the state that we do the next horde event in. Actually, I'm considering Arizona as that's probably my top choice right now for the next horde event. So yes, would be my answer. We haven't yet, but I think we should. A lot of reptiles in Arizona, and if I can find a good, you know, Airbnb, or last time we had such a great situation because Azara's dad offered up their family's farmhouse to us, where we stayed at the farmhouse, camped outside. Some of us stayed inside, and it was the perfect spot to launching point to going and finding reptiles. So if we could find something like that in Arizona, that'd be amazing. But I don't expect to find something like that. But maybe a Airbnb or something that we could grab and then go herping. So that's that. You know what? I'm gonna point Damar. Oh shoot, I messed up her hides. I'm just putting her on the ground right now. I might go and fix her hides again because she's going to go back over there and she's going to want to be back in the situation that she's used to. Okay. And then one more question from H&K Creations. And finally, say someone wanted to send you something cool. Do you have a fan mail address? I do have a Green Room Python's address, and fortunately, it's only for cool things. Don't try to send me any garbage, you know. It's not for garbage. It's just for cool things. Send me anything you want. I love getting things. The address is 3727 West Magnolia Boulevard, box 250, Burbank, California, 91505. But it's also listed in the bottom of the, you know, I have a ton of stuff in the description of every video, and it just, most of that massive list of things just populates into every video. And at the very bottom is that mailing address. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see it. 3727 West Magnolia Boulevard, box 250, Burbank, 91505. That is the Green Room Python's mailbox. And occasionally I go over there and pick up my mail. So if you send something to me, I'll probably get it within the month or something. Hang on, let me fix Damara's. Hang on. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to put her back. Hang on a second. Give me just a moment to get this snake back. I'm going to be feeding a lot of snakes tonight after the live stream, and I don't want to forget that Damara's out, and then all of a sudden have a bunch of rodent smell in the room. So we put her back now. This is something that happens with Handsome Dan a lot. He's like a ninja when he's out, and I'll start hair drying rodents, you know, to feed off to snakes, and all of a sudden I'll see Handsome Dan sitting up on top of the thing, like just ready, and then I got to grab a hook and deal with this extreme food mode boa on top of the cages. It's happened several times. It's not the ideal situation to be in with that guy. And he's usually not getting fed. When he smells rodents, he's almost never getting fed. He eats about once every 3 weeks, which means that there's a lot of feeding that happens in this room that he's not involved in. So that's that. All right, let's see where we're at. Okay, Suzanne is asking socialization tips for small snakes with big feeding responses. That's a good question. So a big feeding response isn't a socialization situation. You can have a very well socialized snake that has a massive feeding response, and you could get bit. For instance, Echo is a very well socialized snake. She's just in food mode a lot. And because snakes their brains live in these modes, if a snake is in food mode, their socialization goes out the window because they're not thinking of you, they're not thinking of their relationship with you. They're biting at a heat signature. If we're talking about a python and some boas that have heat sensing pits, they're biting at a heat signature. Some snakes are biting at movement. I think even though my black-headed pythons can sense heat, they don't have heat pits, but they have behind their rostral scale, they've got a heat sensor thing. They're more movement oriented. So when Maya's in food mode, she's going to bite at any movement. And then once I'm in her mouth, she realizes it's me and let's go. But that's not a socialization issue. That's a food response issue. So all my socialization tricks work for small snakes and big snakes. All those tricks that we talk about of working with the snake's brain. But with the snake in food mode, hook training is great. Target training is nice too, but really tap training is the way to actually switch a snake out of that mental mode, out of that mode. And we call it training, and the snake eventually does get trained that when that hook comes in, that means they're not getting fed. But they pick up on the training from the first time you use it, and it's not really training. What it does is they get this hook or paper towel roll or whatever it is on their head, tapping on their head or their back or whatever, and they go, oh, what's that? It just snaps them out of that mode, and all of a sudden they're not focused on food. I saw a video one time, Tony Robbins working with somebody, and he was like in the lobby after one of his big Tony Robbins events. I don't know what they call it, but one of his speaking engagements. And this woman was in tears. She was crying. I don't remember what the situation was, but she's just in her head about she just broken up with her husband or whatever, and she lost her job and all this stuff, and this. And Tony Robbins takes a glass of water and dumps it on her head, and she goes like this, and all of a sudden she's out of that mental space that she was in, and now she's dealing with the fact that she's dripping in water, and it was just such a funny example that we can do this type of thing to humans, to any kind of animal, anything. And with a snake, just having something touching them on their head or their back or whatever that makes them just go, what is that? What's going on right now? Is this something that I should be worried about? I know it's not food. So, and sometimes they don't know it's not food. I've had Echo bite at the hook. Sometimes I'll bring the hook into her and she'll bite at it. As soon as she bites at it, she realizes it's not food. I also have had her bite at water before. I'll be spraying water and she's in food mode. And as soon as she feels a drop of water on her head, she'll strike at it and then realize it's not food. So, but eventually, the point is, eventually they realize that's not food. I'm not in food mode anymore because there's something else happening right now, and I have to deal with that. So this is my very long way of saying that even though they will eventually get trained to what that is, it doesn't matter if they're not trained because it's going to snap them out of their food mode situation anyway. I spent a lot of time explaining that. I hope I didn't talk in circles too much, and I hope it was understandable. the point that I was trying to make. Okay. ALS mom says, I pick up my 4-month. Let's see. I pick my 4-month-old up and lay my hand on the bed. He leaves as soon as possible. He explores all the enrichment and will come back and check out my hand or arm a few times. He recoils like he tongue flicked a bowl of battery acid. I Googled and bought fragrance-free shampoo, body wash, hand soap, dryer sheets, starting to get a complex. Okay, no need to do all that, ALS mom. Your snake is just acting like a snake. And it's acting like most of my snakes act when they're free roaming and they have all kinds of stuff to check out. And then they come over and see that it's me. They're like, oh, I don't want that guy. I want to go find my other stuff. So they pull away and go do their thing. Some of them, you know, my reticulated pythons don't do that as much. They'll tongue flick on me and go, oh, this guy, let me crawl on him for a minute. But most snakes are going to go with what they prefer. And what they prefer is to be off on their own. They don't necessarily want to be with the big monkey that feeds them, you know. So it's not your shampoo or your body wash or anything like that. We don't want to have major like perfume scents and things like that going on around the snakes, but normal body wash and shampoo and such is just fine. That's not what they're recoiling at, and it's not. I wouldn't even call it a recoil. It's just they're making a choice. They're going, oh, this is the monkey that feeds me, but I think it's more of this is the monkey that picks me up, and then I have to go with them and do whatever. So I'm gonna, as long as they're letting me be on my own to explore things, that's what my preference is right now. You know, I talk about sometimes when I have people over and I hand them one of my snakes, my snake will not be nervous for their life and defensive, but all of a sudden they're more nervous because they don't know that person. So they all of a sudden turn around and reach for me, and they'd rather be in my arms. But once they're in my arms, they'd rather be somewhere else. So they're in an uncomfortable situation with somebody they don't know, just like a baby. When you hand a baby to a stranger, you know, or a stranger to the baby, they all of a sudden reach for their mom, right? So the snake is with somebody they don't know. They would much rather be with me. So now that they're with me, they'd much rather be on the floor and do their own thing. So we just can't take it too personally. They're not a super social creature, and they're probably not going to look for our companionship. But you can develop a trust with them where they're not fearing for their life. They trust you. They trust that they're not going to be hurt, you know, when you're interacting with them. Yeah, so that's that. Let me switch to the YouTube mode and see if I've missed anything here. I'm really not seeing these comments now. Sometimes I'll see the occasional comment, but just the way this new software is set up, it's not okay. So I haven't missed any super chats. That's good. Okay, let's get back to this. Kayla's asking, how does Kent feel about Squeak, and how does Squeak feel about Kent? Well, Kent and Squeak have not met, but you know, Squeak is my 4-month-old, I guess, pygmy python. For those of you who don't know, he is all of what do we say? He's 8 grams. He's probably 9 grams now. He's had some meals. He's probably up to 9 grams. And he's super tiny, but he is a snake. So my guess is that Kent would be terrified of him, and he would probably have no reaction at all to Kent, because he seems to be as confident as Pip has always been. These pygmy pythons do not know that they're small. They don't know that I'm big. They're just kind of whatever. Like they're just happy doing whatever. It's great. It's really funny. Okay. Oh, we're on another page, you guys. We're doing good. Well, should we get another snake out? Who should we get? Somebody put it now. I'll look at the comments. Somebody put in the chat who we should bring out. Oh, let me switch to the YouTube comments because I'll see those faster. Who do you want to see? Put it in the chat, and I will get them. In the meanwhile, while I'm waiting for. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll show off some of the new babies. Maybe we'll do that. CW says Douglas. It's a good idea. We'll get Douglas. We'll also get Handsome Dan because I got to put him away anyway. So maybe we'll do that. Joe, Freya is still not available, but maybe I mean, let's see. When did I feed her? Oh, she's probably available. Okay, we got a whole list now, you guys. Let's start with Dan. Let me get Handsome Dan, because then I'll get him back, and then don't let me forget about we'll try to grab. Oh, I know what it is about Freya. I knew there was something. She's in deep shed right now. That's why I can't get her. That's so funny that my brain was like, we can't get Freya, but I couldn't think of why. She is in deep shed. So we're not gonna get Freya, but we'll get Douglas and we'll get I'll show you some new babies. Squeak, possibly Erica, maybe Squeak. Let's see, David, we haven't seen Maya or Banjo yet because they haven't been out. Okay. We do have Michael saying show the babies that are available. So I put 4 babies up on for those of you who are in the horde of keepers and didn't see my messages. There are babies available right now. And I put I think 4 up, right? Is that what I did? Yeah, I put 4 babies up and 2 of them were reserved. There's 2 still available. So if you're in the horde, go look at those, but I'll show you who's still available. Let's do Handsome Dan first though before I forget about it. So I'm going to unplug my ears one more time. I'm going to grab a hook because he's sitting on the back of the inspector's cage here. But he's in ambush. So he's just waiting for a snack. So give me just a moment. Get this guy. Hi, buddy. And the annoying thing is that he's kind of got himself on some cords. It could be a problem. I hope you guys can hear me well. Hi, bud. Let's just keep you off these cords, huh? Okay. Man, these snakes, their tails are like hands. They're so good at just at the last second grabbing something. Okay. Oof. All right. We got him. The mascot of Green Room Pythons, everyone. Handsome Dan, the not Python. Okay, bud. You good? Can you relax a little bit? Takes him a minute. He's been sitting all day up there just without moving. And then all of a sudden, I completely disrupted his world. And I got my ears caught on something. Hang on. So I totally disrupted his world. And it takes him a minute to figure out what's going on. So while he figures out what's going on, I'm going to take care of my technical issues. That plugged back in. Like that. Great. Okay. I think we're doing really well now, you guys. Okay. Now we're back. So I'm not going to have Handsome Dan out too long. But you guys can get a good look at this guy anyway. I mean, he's doing well. He's a good size. And good size meaning I think he's bigger than most male centrals of his age, from what I've been told. But he's got great body condition, and he eats a varied diet. He got a quail the other day, and I think he's good. But this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. He is right now just looking for another place to go. He wants to be off on his own. He knows that he's not in any danger, but he would be more comfortable on his own. And he's a snake that would never crawl onto my hand. He does tongue flick me. I open his door every morning. If he's up, not every morning, but every morning that he's up and moving in front of his cage, I open his door and I show him my hand, and he tongue flicks on it, and he tongue flicks up my arm and such like that. But then he goes around me to to get out of the cage. He's not crawling onto me to get anywhere. And that's just his personality. You know, he would rather not be on a person. He'd rather be out on his own. And he knows that he's usually allowed to be out on his own. So he's just looking for that opportunity right now, something to grab, to pull himself somewhere, you know, where he can find a comfortable spot. So I'm going to put him in his cage, and he'll find a nice comfortable spot in his cage. So that's that. There's Handsome Dan. So hang on one second. I'm going to flip around. Get him in his cage real quick. Go, bud. Okay. Sorry. It's going to be a second. I got to wait for him to crawl off my hand. He's doing it. There we go. Okay. Okay, that worked. Now we'll get I'll show you some babies. Hang on. Let me make sure that I haven't missed any. Okay. Okay. Great. Let me grab here. You want to see some babies? Yeah. So first, in just a moment. I'll show you who's still available. Oh, wait. That's not the right snake. I've moved snakes around. Oh, no, it is. This one. Okay. So here are two babies. And then just for those of you in the horde, coincidentally, of the snakes that I made available yesterday, these are the two that are still available. For those of you who wanted to know who is still available. So this one, this little one is a pied double het axanthic clown. And this is a pastel triple het pied axanthic clown. These are Kodiak and Anya's babies. This was Anya's first clutch. And they're real pretty snakes. So these snakes, this is probably the only clutch that I've ever had where every snake has taken every meal that I've offered. They all ate the first time I offered. And the reason is that for most of the clutch, when I feed them, I hold them like this and I offer them food and they take it. So Will at CNC Python Factory, who's one of our moderators, mentioned that at one time, that's how he gets babies to eat. And I thought, well, he's clearly lying. That wouldn't work. No, I'm just kidding. I gave it a try and it absolutely works. So these snakes have taken every meal and I still hold them like that. most of them still take their meal being held like that. I offer it to them in their tub, but if they don't strike right away, I just pick them up and they'll eat it that way. And then I just put them back in their, you know, as soon as they strike and wrap, I put it back in their tub. So pretty interesting. Anyway, so those are those babies. I'm gonna show you a few babies. So that's from that clutch. And then let me just double check this thing so I'm not missing any super chats. I think we're good there. Okay. All right. So let me show you some of the brand new Freya babies because those are real cool. Just randomly bringing one over. They're all different. They're all different, but I'm not going to get them all out. So we're still waiting on half the clutch to shed, but this was the first one to pip and the first one to shed, and that's why I brought him out. Or her. This is a girl. This is a little girl, and most of the clutch was girls. Out of 8 babies, we have 2 boys and 6 girls. So this snake would be a orange dream, maybe super orange dream. I got to compare with the rest of the clutch to figure that out. But orange dream, inchy, fire, extreme gene, and do we have calico? I don't think we have calico in this one. I wouldn't say, but a few cool genes that make this snake look awesome. I wish we'd focus. Here we go. Look at that. So I'm saying fire instead of pastel. Those of you who know those very simple morphs, give me your opinion on that. Fire or pastel? Because the inspector is the dad, and he's a firefly, so he's got both. I believe this head stamp is fire. I think it'd be more blushed out if it was pastel. But all these babies are super good looking. Super good looking. Only 2 bananas. So I said we have 2 males. Those are the bananas. We have only 2 bananas out of that clutch, but there's enough genes in this that every snake is a beautiful, beautiful snake. So I'm very happy with this clutch. The one snake that I'm following for the video was the last to hatch and will be the last to shed. I'm guessing that snake will shed probably like 3 days from now, or he just starting to go into his or her into her shed cycle, I think. So cute little baby. I'm gonna put this one back so she's not too stressed. And we'll get Douglas. Then we'll get Douglas and we'll have him for a while. And I'll get back to the questions. Okay. Let me just double check on Douglas. Oh, well, here's an interesting development. Douglas, who's always on his cliff and easy to grab, is not currently on his cliff. So let me locate him. Let's see where he is, and is he easy to grab? Oh, I see him. He's on his log instead of his cliff this time. Hey, pal, you're in food. He's looking for food. This guy, but it's not food. It's neat. So here's where we'll use a hook. This is a great example of what I was just talking about. If I can find one. I've never used a hook on Douglas before, but he's sitting on that log hoping for food to come by. So I know that he'll snatch my hand. So what I'm doing now is I'm touching him with the hook, and that just makes him go, what the heck is this? I don't know what this is. And it snaps him out of food mode. So even though he's not hook trained, he's now out of food mode, and I can reach in and grab this log. Grab him. Okay, hi bud. Did I interrupt you? I think I interrupted your activities. He was really hoping a mouse would run by that he could snatch. My pal? He is going to get fed today, though. In fact, I might feed him. You know what? Here's the problem. I can't use my second camera, so I don't know how that will work. I may not feed him on camera, but right up on the hat. He is a fan of hats, and that's interesting. He's never been on this hat before, and it's leather, so that's a different smell. Like usually he just goes right up, no problem, but he stopped, and he's being cautious because it's a new surface. That's pretty interesting. We'll see how long it takes him to decide that it's safe for him to crawl up on. And while he does that, let me check the YouTube side of this. Okay. Man, he's being so cautious. That's really funny. Okay, while he's doing this, I'm just going to sit there and hold this log while he's going so slow. And we'll answer the next question once I figure out where we're at. I know where we're at. Alyssa says, what's the best way to heat a temporary ball python tub enclosure for quarantine purposes? That would be a heat mat. You just have a heat mat under the tub, and the heat mat is going to say that it's not designed for plastic. And you might even hear someone on a Reddit forum, or maybe some of the Facebook forums that are less reputable. You'll hear people say, "Don't put a heat mat; it'll melt your tub. It's going to melt your tub." But what people fail to understand is that the heat coming off of a heat mat that's plugged into a thermostat only gets up to about 88 to 90 degrees. And that's not anywhere near the temperature to melt plastic. So it will only melt the plastic if you don't put it on a thermostat, and it just allows it to get as hot as it can get. Then you could melt plastic. But if you do it right, it's a normal way. Every tub and every rack is plastic, and it's heated with belly heat. It's heated with heat tape, and that's all a heat mat is. So that's how you do that. It's real simple. And get, have a heat mat that's approximately 25%, covers about 25% of the floor space of the tub. That's what you want. Don't have it like where it's half the tub, or just 10% in a corner or something like that. Good 25% is what you want to heat for the warm side if you're heating from the ground. And then also don't have thick substrate. Have them on, it's quarantine, so you're going to have them on paper anyway, so that should be fine. Okay, next question from Alyssa is it okay to let two male ball pythons free roam in a room that is safe for them, or a playpen enrichment type, two male ball pythons, or a playpen enrichment type situation? or I guess does gender matter in these situations? It does matter when they're sexually mature. It doesn't matter if they're babies. If we're talking about babies, it doesn't make a difference. They can roam together. But once they're sexually mature, males will combat. So you don't want them roaming together. And sexual maturity could come at as early as 7 or 8 months, actually. And I don't know that. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I think that they are starting to become sexually mature at 7 or 8 months. But what I don't know is if they've got so many hormones coursing through them that they would actually combat one another at that point. I don't know. But my point is that it doesn't take them long before they could potentially combat one another and look at each other as a threat. So that's what you would want to look out for. But as babies, no problem. Because what I'm thinking here is, like, I know that people have put a male ball python in with a female at like 8 or 9 months, and they'll try to breed that female. Whether they're successful or not, I don't know, but they'll try to breed that female. You know, having the female with all those hormones, and there might get that very young male going, but I don't know that another male would. So I don't know. If anybody has experience in putting males together at around a year old, let me know what happens. But I know they'll combat each other when they're adults. So when they're, full on breeding age. Okay, I just saw a super chat. Tanya, Tanya's saying, you said you'd show the holdback from the avails. Yes, I will. I have 2 holdbacks. Well, I have one from those available snakes. I'll show that. And then I have another holdback that I'm keeping also. I will show those. Thanks for reminding me. Once we put Douglas back, I'll show those. He decided the hat was safe enough for him to get up onto. Douglas is growing fast. This guy is on rat pups. And I don't know if you can tell from the video, but his body thickness is less than a rat pup. He is thinner than a rat pup, but actually not by much. He looks almost as thick, but he can take pretty big. Meals. Okay, let's get to the next. All right, Debbie says, hi, Bob. Do you have any tips on how I can get a good weight on my 5-month-old ball python? I've tried to weigh her a few times using a plastic food storage container, but she keeps crawling out really fast, and I can't get her to stay put. Yeah, so a lid on that container would be an easy way to do it. Just, put your hand on the head and then the lid on really quick. But probably the easiest way to do it is just in a for a larger ball python, we use a pillowcase, but any kind of bag like that, just weigh the bag and then tear your scale and, zero out your scale, and then put the snake in the bag on the scale. That's the best way to do it if you don't have a lid for that container, but a lid works really well also. We get real used to putting snakes in containers with lids at reptile shows. I've never vended a reptile show, but I've handled. Do you want to say something, Douglas? Do you have something you want to talk about? I've handled enough snakes at reptile shows and then went to try to put them back in their little lidded plastic enclosure that it takes a little practice, but eventually you get it. Hey, pal, what are you finding here, huh? Is this real interesting to you? All right. Big Mama D says, question for you and the chat. Best reptile show within 6-hour drive of Cleveland, Ohio, besides Tinley. So that is specifically a question for the chat because I have no idea. You guys, what is the best reptile show or just a good reptile show within a 6-hour drive of Cleveland, Ohio, besides Tinley? You can also, if you're watching this after and you're not in the chat because you didn't watch it live, just put it in the comments and we'll see it. You guys, how great is Douglas, right? Such a cool snake. I'm going to put him back. I'm going to let him get back to his hunting behavior because he's eventually going to be successful with his hunting tonight. He's going to be real happy with what comes to visit him this evening. Okay, pal. Sorry to bother you. But look at that. He was in serious food mode. We used the hook. He's never seen a hook before. We just touch him with the hook and mess with him a little bit, not to scare him, but just be like, hey, something else is happening. He snaps out of food mode and he goes right into just curious about the hat. Is the hat safe? What's this microphone thing? Just normal, curious snake. And now give him a few minutes to crawl around in his cage, and then he's going to be back in food mode. So, you know, they're just happy to live in whatever mode their brain happens to be in, I think. And for keepers who understand that their snakes live in these different modes for their brain, it's very helpful in understanding their behavior and predicting how their snake is going to react in any given moment. You know, I knew that going into that cage with my hand would get me bit. My prediction is there's a good chance that I'm going to be bit if I reach in there. But once he was with me, my prediction was that if he bit me, I would be shocked if he bit me. Like that's not in his nature to bite me when he's in thinking mode. But it is in his nature to bite any movement or heat signature that comes in front of his face when he is in food mode, because he doesn't realize it's me. You know, you get it. Okay. Where are we at here? Oh, let me check the chat for super chats. There's one from David. Hang on. I'm going to get to it. Oh, we got to get to those babies. We're going to get to those in a second. David at Hog Stricters says, whoa, just noticed the new chair. Weren't you always on a stool before? Congrats on the comfort upgrade. Yes, David. Thanks for noticing the new fancy chair. I got so many fancy things. Not only do I have a fancy mic that I like, I almost like my mic arm better than the mic itself. This arm is so good. It's such a good arm. I got all kinds of new equipment, and this chair I got because I realized that in the 24-hour live stream, I like the stool that I have. That's a work stool basically that I sit on and roll around the room and work with snakes. And I've used that to sit on during the live streams, and it's fine, but it's not super comfortable. During this 24-hour live stream that I'm going to do, I'm going to need a comfortable chair. And also I'm starting a podcast, which is completely separate from Green Room Pythons, but I'll be launching that podcast soon. And once we get closer to launching it, I'll be talking about it a little bit on Green Room Pythons just to let people know, but it's not a reptile podcast. So, you know, if anyone is interested in it, they can listen in. So we'll talk about that as we get closer to it. But as I'm setting up that podcast studio, it's giving me much better equipment and much better stuff for the live streams on Green Room Pythons. So I'm happy about that. And this chair upgrade is nice. Here's what I learned when I went to buy a chair, because I was just going to buy a gaming chair because they look like the most comfortable things. Apparently they're not. They were designed originally by a race car seat company, and they started repurposing the design for gamers because they realized that they could sell a ton, but they're not comfortable. Apparently they just look cool. So what you want is an ergonomic chair, not a gaming chair, unless looking cool is your only concern. So I almost bought a gaming chair, and at the last minute before I clicked buy, I just did a little bit of research and realized that I was probably getting the wrong thing. Randiala, yes, I'm planning a 24 for those of you who weren't here earlier. See, look at this. I can show people's comments that aren't super chats, but right now on this new program, I can't show super chats, which is so sad, but I will read them aloud. And I'll try to figure this out for the next live stream. But yeah, for those of you who weren't here before, as soon as this channel hits 100,000, which is going to happen in about a month, we're about a month away from 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a 24-hour live stream in celebration of that milestone, because I wanted to do something a little bit crazy, and that is crazy, but it's going to be super fun too, because we're going to have people live. We're going to have guests live in the green room. We're going to have guests on video. We're going to have giveaways. Clint at Black Box Cages already said that he is willing to do a 4x2x2 giveaway. There's probably going to be other giveaways during it. It's going to be fun. And it's going to make it so that the people in the UK or the people just on the other side of the earth who never get to tune into my live streams can tune in the middle of the night when I'm going to be so freaking tired. Because I realized, so what I was thinking I was going to do before I really thought about this, what I was thinking I was going to do is that I would just start it like now-ish with a regular live stream like we do. I'd start it at 5 p.m. Pacific time. We would go through a regular live stream, Snakes and Scotch. I would answer questions. And then rather than shutting it down, I would just keep it on until 5 p.m. the next day. But what I realized is there's no way I'm not a good napper. So I would be up all day before 5 p.m. So what I'm going to do for this 24-hour live stream, I'm not sure yet what time I'm going to schedule it for, but I'm going to probably start it at like 7 in the morning. I'm just going to wake up, take a shower, and then hit the streaming button. And we're going to start from 7 in the morning and go till 7 in the morning. That way I will have just slept the night at least, and it gives me a decent head start. So that's the plan. Who's with me? Who's planning to watch the entire 24 hours? Come on. Somebody should do that, I think. I don't expect you to, but I think people will pop in and out and it'll be fun. I'll let people know, if we have anything really big happening, I'll put a time on that. Like we're going to do this at this time. I think I haven't planned it all out, but I've figured out some stuff in my brain at least. So I think it'll be fun. All right, where are we at? Oh, I'm showing off the babies that I'm keeping. So of Freya's babies, no, not Freya's, of Anya's babies, we got 3 that were visual pieds, and they're all double het for Axanthic Clown, and then we had that one pastel that I showed you that's triple het. So I'm just keeping one of the visual pieds. And but then also there's a baby from Tiger Lily that's pretty awesome that I'm keeping at least for the time being. So I'm going to show you both of those, and I'll show you why for the time being. Hang on. The one for those of you who saw the Halloween episode with Keegan, the baby that she held at the end is this baby that I'm getting from Tiger Lily. All right, hang on. I'll grab them both. All right, let's see where they are because I just moved things around a little bit. So usually when I have a new snake, whether I get a new snake or I'm holding back a snake, it takes me a long time for me to figure out a name for these new ones, because names are important to me. But I have named this. I have named Tiger Lily's baby already because it just came to me and I thought it was funny and I like it. So I'll tell you what that is. Hang on a second. Let me just show you these snakes first. So here's the pied that I'm holding back. This is a girl. This is a little girl right here. And het for Axanthic, het for Clown. Cute little baby. And this is Tiger Lily's baby. His name is Naranja, but we call him Naren. His name's Naren, but his full name is Naranja. Because if you speak really good Spanish like I do, that's orange in Spanish. And it's one of several Spanish words that I know. So that's that. These are two babies that I'm holding back. Now, this one I'm holding back for the time being because I need to see if he's asphalt or not. And I believe he is, but I want to get him tested for it. If he's not asphalt, I might rehome him to a Patreon supporter, but I want to find that out. So he's what is he? He's Orange Dream, obviously. Inchy, Asphalt, I believe. I don't remember what else. Calico, maybe Calico, but low expression if he is. So that'll come out after a few sheds. Oh yes, I do think he's Calico because Calico make this back, he's got kind of a unbroken back right there. Calico does that sometimes. So even though I'm not seeing it come up on his sides, I think it's going to come in later. So he's got a lot of cool stuff going on. And then we got this one that's just a visual pied and het for some other stuff. So I like these two additions. Okay. Sonia's saying, hope you did something nice for Keegan. Could you hang on? Oh shoot, I just lost it. Could you make that poor girl cry, or was that acting? She was totally freaked. Yeah, she was freaked. That is not acting. Keegan is not that good of an actor. She was absolutely very scared. She has a phobia. And hang on a second. I'm going to put these babies back. So Keegan definitely has a phobia of snakes. And she the attention that she gets from doing a Green Room Python's video outweighs the extreme phobia of snakes that she has, though. So people like her on the channel, and she likes seeing all the nice comments from everyone. So but when I was doing that video, I'm always really careful when I do the introducing people to snakes videos. Like, I think I'm good at introducing people to snakes without traumatizing them. I think I'm pretty in tune to why people are afraid and what I could do to make them the most comfortable that they could be with these snakes. And this video was a Halloween video with Keegan, and I was not doing that at all. And I was a little concerned about that because that's not my normal. Like, I don't want somebody to watch that and think that that's how I would normally introduce people to snakes. But for those of you who don't know, Keegan is my ex-girlfriend, and we're still very good friends, obviously. And so I know Keegan well, and I don't mind torturing her a bit for a Halloween video that was her idea, by the way. So it was fun. She had a great time, and she's told me several times since that she had a great time doing the video, even though it was terrifying for her. I thought she did great. So that's that. Where are we at? We're answering questions. I'm going to have another snake with me. I need to get a snake that can stay with me for a little bit. Let me figure out who that is. Did we have anyone else on that list? I know people said Freya, but she's in shed, so I can't get Freya. I'm excited to show you guys Freya, though, when I can bring her out again, because she hasn't been out in 6 months, like really 6 months. She hadn't eaten. I figured out that from the time that she went off food to the time that she took that meal, I gave her a meal as soon as I separated the babies from her. I gave her a meal that night, and she took it. It had been 6 months since she had a meal, so I probably haven't had her out at all during those 6 months. And I miss that snake, so I can't wait for her to shed so that she can just be another snake roaming around the green room and hanging out with me, you know? Um, uh, Jason, yes. So Keegan has a degree in psychology and she works in that field. So she she absolutely understands her phobia. She understands what a phobia is all about. And but even when you understand it, that's not going to take away your phobia, right? Like I understand my phobia of spiders. I've had to work on it. And I feel like it's not really even a phobia anymore. I don't have a phobia of spiders, just some of them still creep me out, but I used to have a phobia. Um okay, so let me see where I'm at here. I'm uh, I'm almost there. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Melody asks, I'm buying my first ball python off Morph Market next week. Is quarantine necessary before putting her in her enclosure? I have no other snakes or reptiles. How long would I need to quarantine? Okay, so basically for quarantine, when you're not quarantining from other animals, what quarantine is, you use the same enclosure you have set up, but just put the snake on paper for 30 days because you're basically looking for mites. Number one, mites are little tiny black things that you're never going to see if they're on, or it's going to be hard to see if they're on substrate. So you put them on white, some sort of white paper like paper towels, so that you could see if the snake happens to have mites. And then you're also checking their poop. You can see their poop easier when they're on white paper. And it's common when you bring a new snake home that they might have like a runny stool the first or second time that they poop. That's usually from the stress of a flight if they were shipped, but or the stress of just being at a reptile show and you bring them home from the reptile show. That's a big adventure for them. They could have a runny poop. Not a huge deal, but you want to keep an eye on it. So you just keep them on paper so you can see anything that's going on with that snake. That's what quarantine means when you're not actually quarantining them from other animals. So but yeah, no need to set up a separate cage. Just do it in the cage that you had planned for them. You're just putting them on paper for 30 days. There was another question. I feel like I saw this question, but then didn't answer it. But maybe it's coming up. There was a question about. It's probably coming up, but I'm just going to say it right now because it's on my mind. There was a question about how to hold humidity in a cage where you're quarantining and you just have them on paper. And for me, you're only doing it temporarily, but you can spray down the cage, especially a corner of the cage. You could give your snake a humid hide. There's a number of ways that you can provide humidity in a cage that's just paper towels. Wet paper towels will stay wet most of the day. You don't have to soak them, but you can spray them down a little bit, or have a humid hide or a pile of sphagnum moss that you keep wet all the time. I don't even think you need to do that. That's more than you need to do. But just keeping an eye on spraying it each day a little bit. Doesn't have to be fully wet, but just so there's some humidity in there. That question's probably going to come up in a little bit here. Okay, are we on another page? Did I just flip the page? I must have. No. Wait. Oh, I skipped a question. Jules asked, I don't think I answered this one. Jules asks, would you or have you ever done an Oregon horde meetup during Ren Fair season? No, I haven't. And I wouldn't, only because when I'm doing a Ren Fair, it's so taxing. I'm so exhausted by the end of the day that I can't do anything. I go back and I crawl in bed and I'm hoping to be asleep, but literally by 8 p.m. Like I'm just exhausted after doing 3 to 4 shows at Ren Fair and hosting a pub crawl usually. So that's not a good time to do any kind of meetup with anybody. There's even, a lot of times the performers at these Ren Fairs will all decide to go out to dinner, and I miss a lot of those because I don't even want to go out to dinner. I'm like, just want to, eat something and then go to bed. But we definitely should do a horde meetup in Oregon sometime, just not during Ren Fair. By the way, next year I'm going to cut way back on the Ren Fairs that I've been doing. It was a lot this summer. So we'll see what I end up doing next year, but I'm probably am not going to do nearly as much. If any, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I like doing it. It's just a lot when I'm also trying to do videos for my channel, which is the main thing right now. So I feel like I kind of have to pick one or the other. All right, let's see where we're at now. So I had accidentally skipped that question. I answered a bunch of others. Hang on. Got that. Okay, we're on. Okay, Barbara Perry has a few questions. Now I know where I'm at on that, but now I want to switch to the chat real quick to see if I've missed anything before I get to Barbara's. There's something from Crisis. Hang on one second. Okay, so there's a few. Hang on one second. There are a few super chats. Hold on. Okay. So David, another super chat. That's 2 in a row, David. Thanks for these. If you need to tag out during the 24-hour live stream, I'm not far away. I'm down to come help. Yes, David, you'll definitely be invited to come over during the 24-hour live stream for sure. Thanks for that. You can come over and hang out with the black-headed pythons if you want. Arlo says, "What's up, Bobby B? It's me, Bobby B. Bob Barron. Love your show." Okay, so Arlo is Bob Barron, also a Bobby B. I get it. Thanks, Bob Barron. I appreciate that. Glad you enjoy the show. Crisis, thanks for the super chat. Crisis Corp says, "Did you help convince my Oh, you did help convince my Las Vegas friend to hold a snake at the expo." That's right. It was so nice to meet your dad. I know that I'm not good with names, you guys, with remembering names. I'm sure many of you can relate to that, but I totally remember Crisis's dad's name and their friend's name, because his name is Ken and her name is Barbie. They're not together. They're not a couple, but they were Barbie and Ken. And Barbie held her first snake. We had dinner together the night before. We had a very small Horde of Keepers meetup, and Barbie and Ken joined in on that. And then the next day, Barbie held her first snake at the Las Vegas Expo. That was fun. Okay. Let's get back to these. I think I did all the super chats. I think I'm caught up on these. And I'm sorry that most of these comments are going to go without me seeing them until I watch this tomorrow morning. Okay. All right. Barbara Perry says, I'm paraphrasing this because it was a long one. So she got a new setup she's getting a new setup for a Hog Island boa. What's the best way to heat my new 4x2x2 or 4x4x2 enclosure? 4x4x2? Are we saying? I bet it's a 4x2x2, but maybe it's 4 feet long by 4 feet wide by 2 feet high. That's going to be crazy to get into to clean if it is the case. I bet it's 4x2x2 though. Is it radiant heat panel? what's the best way to go? Some other method? You know, Barbara, it really depends on your situation. And if you're ordering it through pretty much any company, but I know that if you order through Black Box Cages, you can email them and Clint or Jennifer will recommend based on what your situation is. So I use radiant heat panels in all of my cages. But the reason I do that is because that works in this room to get the side of their cage to where it needs to be. So about 94 degrees for the black-headed pythons, about 88 degrees for, or about 86 degrees actually for the retics, stuff like that. And then the cool side remains, you know, 78 degrees, something like that. If your room, if the ambient temperatures in your room make it so that you've got to have a more focused hot spot on the warm side, so that it's cooler on the cool side, then you would want like a deep heat projector or a CHE or something like that, and you could have that with a cage. But it really depends on the situation in the room and how the room works. They all the overhead heating stuff works. It's just what's best based on your the dimensions of the cage, for one thing. You know, if you have a super long cage, then a radiant heat panel is better. Like, for instance, these cages right here are only 3 foot long, and I wish kind of that they weren't radiant heat panels because I'm heating up too much of the cage. It works, it's okay, but it would be better if I had a focused, uh, more focused heat source. So anyway, it's better if you talk to the builder of your cage and get them to recommend, you know, because they'll ask you all the questions about your room and everything else. So that's that. And then the next question: when I move my boa into her new enclosure, should I start using a snake hook to get her attention when I take her out? She's target trained and has a typical boa feeding response, so she's always ready to eat. Yes, you should. So just like we did with Douglas over there, he's, you know, it's no problem if he were to bite me, but I don't want him to. So I used that hook. That was the first time I've ever used a hook on Douglas. And so it was a good way to show that works from the very first time you do it. So yeah, I would say for a boa, I do it with Handsome Dan. I use a hook with him anytime I'm going into his enclosure. He always looks like he's ready to strike. Even he just sits that way in a relaxed position, but he looks like he's in strike mode. So I always use a hook with Handsome Dan, whether he's in his cage or, you know, sitting up somewhere. You know, when I approached him to get him off of the top of this cage earlier, I used a hook, you know, always. So yes is my response to that. And then Barbara has another question. Our latest ball python, a reptile from a reptile rescue, is currently in a 30-gallon glass tank on paper towels until we move her to her permanent bigger bioactive. How do we keep humidity up? That was the question. Okay, so we just talked about that. Just spray it down. We've just been spraying the paper towels every day. Is this okay? Yes. And is it enough for now, or should we be doing something else to maintain the humidity? No, it's fine. That's fine, especially when it's temporary. It's not that big of a deal. You know, I have all the babies on paper until they're a little bit older. I put them on substrate, and sometimes the paper gets too dry in there, and sometimes it's too wet in there, and I just kind of have to monitor. And I'll put a little bit of water on the paper towel if I need to, but otherwise, and then if it's too wet, then you know, if I see condensation on the side of the tub, then I know that I need to change that towel to something drier. So you just kind of manage it. And it would be a pain if they were going to be on paper their whole life. But if it's just for 30 days or something, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, Lisa says, "Hi, Bob. Do you prefer enclosures with drop-down doors or sliding doors, and why?" So, good question. All of my cages have either drop down or swing out doors, and I prefer those for smaller snakes. If your snake is relatively small, I don't prefer a sliding door because they can get into the inner workings of those sliding doors. And so I don't like that. But once the snake is bigger, I prefer a sliding door, even though I don't have them. I'm not using any sliding doors, but it's much easier to manage a snake that might be coming out striking if you're behind the glass sliding a door versus if you're opening it and swinging it down. So with my retics, for example, especially with Echo, uh, when when I'm opening her cage to feed her, she knows that I'm feeding. I unlock her cage and then I use a hook to open that door and place it down. It would be much easier if I could just slide a thing over. But it's not a huge deal. It's just that if you got a big snake sliding, if you got a small snake swinging or whatever. That's what I think. I do like these doors though. I don't think that I would change it. I like that I'm uniform in this room and I'm used to working with these doors, so it's no big deal. Um, I don't think that I would want to change to sliding, and I wouldn't want new cages to be sliding. You know, I like having everything sort of uniform. Let's see if I missed anything here. I have not. All right. Next question. We're burning through these, you guys. Oh, I'm going to get another snake out too. While I'm answering this question, put in your in the comments who you want to see. Ronan, Handsome Dan's enclosure is he's in a 5 foot by 2 foot by 18 high. It's a big cage for him. He's got a lot of room in there, especially for his activity level. He likes to find a spot to sit and then he'll sit for years. So he's not a big explore around type guy. Here we go. I'm almost at the spot. Here we go. Found it. Lexi says, will you please ask Kent if he would do a Kent's Corner during the 24-hour live stream? Yes, I will ask him. I'll ask him. He might be willing to. You never know. And how early do you start free roaming your ball pythons? I start when they're babies, but it's not really free roaming. It's setting them up in a playpen in order to encounter their siblings for one thing, but then just other objects in the playpen. Actual free roaming where they're allowed to cruise around the house, cruise around the room, is I kind of, it depends on the individual, depends on their personality, but usually it's a sub-adult that's getting into their adult size. So I don't want them small, I don't want to have, I don't want to be worried that I might step on them. I want to be able to see them out of the corner of my eye if I'm walking across the room. They need to be that big, basically. And then really it depends on their personality, what they're like. And when I start free roaming a snake, either for the first time ever or the first time in the season, meaning Anya, for example, hadn't free roamed since before she laid eggs, before she was in breeding season. So it's been months and I need to know what her pattern is. I want to know what my snake's patterns are in the room, because there are areas that I don't want them to get into, just because, not because it's unsafe for them, but it'll be a pain for me to get them out of it. So I do have some areas that I like to keep them away from. So I want to watch to see what her patterns are and what her tendencies are. And do I need to be always pulling her out of these certain areas that I don't really want them to go? Once I know, so for instance, Damara, who I just put away, I know what her patterns are. I know that she never gets herself into trouble. Well, that's not true. She doesn't never, but almost never gets herself into trouble. I know right now, at least, that when I let her out, there's a couple hides that she's going to go to eventually. She'll cruise around the room for a minute and then go into those hides. And then she's trustworthy. She'll be there until I put her back, until I pick her up out of there and put her back. So, okay. So here we go. Okay, so that was Lexi's questions that I just answered. Susan's, Susan says, this one's paraphrased also. Okay, so Susan's got a 16-month-old ball python that is 680 grams in a 5x2x2 cage. That's a pretty big cage, especially for, you know, a snake that's only 680 grams. That's a lot of room. So Susan was at a reptile show looking at a 6x2x2 cage. She says because the snake is growing fast. And one of the vendors told her that the cage that she has now is way too big for the snake and she should get a smaller one so that the snake can maintain her security. She says, I've not had any problems with Henrietta not feeling secure as I've got several hides and a lot of foliage. Do you think it would be a mistake to do a larger cage for her? So that's a good question. First of all, whoever told you that your cage is too big is totally wrong. This is an old school breeder who probably only has their snakes in tubs, and they always recommend a small cage for ball pythons. But that's not always good information. It's good information for a baby. You know, a little baby ball python would have a hard time in a big open space. So a smaller enclosure for them or just a lot more security for them is good. But especially when your snake is getting a little older, more confident, they're fine in a bigger enclosure. 5x2x2 is huge for a snake that size. You know, most adult ball pythons do fine in a 4x2x2 cage at 3,000 grams, you know, so what you're giving your snake is huge, and that's great. And if they're doing fine in a 5x2x2 and you want a bigger cage in your house for your snake, they're going to do fine in a 6x2x2. You know, I think that it's great to give them, if they're using it and they're not nervous, you know, you're obviously you've got plenty of hides and you've got the appropriate amount of foliage, so they're feeling secure. Give them as much space as you can give them. I think that's fantastic. And don't listen to people that, you know, if you came to that guy and you were like, hey, my snake's not eating and it seems terrified of me and it's always nervous, and then you said I have it in a 5x2x2 cage, that would be appropriate to say your cage might be a little bit too big. You know, you've got it on just dirt, 2 hides, and 5 feet of space, you know. Then that would be an appropriate thing. But just the fact that you have in a 5-foot cage, a smaller ball python in a 5-foot cage, and then for him to make that blanket statement, oh, it's too big and your snake isn't comfortable, that's not true information. There's a lot of people that are not the best people to listen to, and I would include that particular person in. Don't even know who we're talking about, but I'd say he's not a good one to listen to. You know, keep in mind that there are a lot of breeders. I think the bigger breeders are great. I put a video out about big breeders versus hobbyist breeders, things like that. There's a lot of big breeders who work with thousands of ball pythons every year, hatch out thousands of ball pythons every year. They put their hands on more snakes than we're ever going to put our hands on, right? But they've never kept a snake in a pet situation in a big enclosure. They don't really know what the behavior of those animals are. They're not seeing them on a daily basis. They have ideas about how to keep them as a pet that they've had for a long time, but since they've never done it themselves, they may not have that kind of experience. You know, there's different types of experiences that we can have with these animals, and just because a big breeder has a lot of experience with a lot of different snakes, they're not developing relationships with snakes. They're not keeping them they're not looking at one snake, the same snake every day and watching their behavior, you know? So it's, you know, again, I'm not trying to throw shade on big breeders, because they, the reason that we are able to have snakes and that we have snakes are because of these big breeders, you know, and the stuff that they do is great, but they're an expert at breeding these animals and putting these morphs together and doing these cool projects. They're not necessarily a behavior and care expert with regard to pet side care stuff. They're great at going, here's how you keep a snake healthy. You know, you keep it in a very basic tub situation. They'll stay healthy. I know how to not make this snake die, you know. But they're not going to know how to target train a snake. I'll tell you that, you know. So anyway, there are some really great big breeders out there, and I think that they would agree with me that they're not an expert on keeping a snake as a pet, you know. So that's that. I could talk for a long time on that. People get information from big breeders all the time that's not necessarily the best information, but because they got their snake from that person, they're using that information as kind of the gospel of how to keep their snake. But that big breeder just doesn't know any better because they don't have that experience from the other side of things. They just have their experience of how they keep their snakes in this one situation, you know. All right. That's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, I can flip a page. Are we on to the last page? We are. We're on to the last page of questions. And let me check the YouTube page here for my super chats. Okay, hold on one second. I just saw one. I want to make sure that yep, okay. Bearded Bullets asks, is there anyone besides Reach Out Reptiles that you would recommend for pure super dwarf retics, or are they the only game in town? Oh, they're not the only game in town. Garrett's a good friend of mine, and Reach Out Reptiles is great, but there are a ton of people. Lucas, what's Lucas's? Somebody put in the chat what Lucas's company is. ROR is Reach Out Reptiles, for those who are asking. So there's a bunch, and they're all escaping my name. Even Lucas's company is escaping my name, or escaping my head. There's a bunch of Lucas Bagnara. Thank you, Jason. Jason breeds super dwarf retics, and he would be a good guy to get some too. Lab Exotics. Thanks, Jason. Got it. Lab Exotics is good. So Lucas breeds pure. He's got Calatoas and some others. I don't keep up with what everybody's doing, but I know that Lucas is good. I know Jason has a number of projects that he's working on. I don't know what Jason is producing right now, but I know he's got a bunch of cool snakes. And there's a lot of just individual breeders. Eric Lee has some great stuff. There's a whole bunch. You know, look, so you know, there are, when you get into like, when you for those of you who are just ball python people, if you've got into the Reddits or some of the more toxic Facebook pages, you see some very toxic behavior within the ball python reptile community, and there are pockets of the reptile community that can get toxic, not because it's the reptile community, but just because it's a hobby that involves human beings online. And when there are human beings online, they love to fight and argue with one another because they're behind a screen. And so they tend to act like that in any hobby. But I will say that the retic niche of the reptile hobby does get very toxic at times. And I stay out of it, but I lurk. So I see a lot of the arguments and a lot of the crazy behavior from some people. So there are people that have cool snakes, but they're really toxic people that I would never buy from. And it's really easy to see who those people are. Once you get into a Facebook forum of retics or something like that, you can just see who those people are. Oh, these people might have really good information, but they're an extremely toxic person, and I don't want to deal with them. And that's okay, because there's a lot of other people that have cool snakes and have good information. And, you know, so anyway, it's the reticulated python community is not I don't want to single them out because it's you're going to find that in every sort of niche within the reptile community, you know, ball pythons, lizards, anything. You're going to have people that are real jerks online. But you see it kind of in a big way with the retic community. It's very silly sometimes. But also on the other side, just there's amazing people with lots of cool projects and cool snakes. So that's that. You just don't want to, you don't want to buy a reticulated python from a super dwarf or a dwarf from just some random person that you found on Morph Market and you don't know their history. You don't know who they are. You don't want to just walk up to a table that you don't know anything about and buy what they're saying is a super dwarf retic at a show, because you really don't know. The thing about dwarf and super dwarf retics is their size can be so different, and these bloodlines are so different, and there are unscrupulous breeders that will say, oh yeah, this is a super dwarf. You don't know anything about super dwarf retics, so they're going to go, yeah, this is a super dwarf, and it's really only 12% super dwarf and the rest is mainland. Stuff like that could happen. So you just want to make sure that you're buying from someone that you've done some research on and that is solid within the community and such like that. Reach Out Reptiles is one of them that does sells really cool snakes and does a good job and whatever, but there's a number of them, Okay, so another question that I answered for a really long time. Hope you guys don't mind my long-winded rambling answers. Let's see if I missed any other. I don't think so. I think I'm caught up on super chats. Okay. Did you guys put what snakes you wanted me to grab? Did anybody answer that? Because I asked for that a while back, and then I realized that I didn't look. Oh, okay. Somebody in the Horde of Keepers is asking for a snake that you guys don't know about yet, that has not been introduced on the channel yet. So I'm not going to get that snake. Sierra's asking for Ozzy. Who I think is in shed, but let me just see where he's at. Maybe I could bring Ozzy out. Let me see what other people are asking though. Lydia or Anya, Fizzy says that's a good possibility. Dan or Kato, we already had Dan out. Pip, Bella. All right, we got some. Okay. All right, we got some good requests here. Let's see what Ozzy's up to. I tell you what, I think he's in shed, but even if he is in shed, if he's sitting on his little fence and I can easily bring his fence out without messing with him, I'll do that. So let me just check. Hang on. Give me just a minute, because he was on his fence last time I saw him. But he's a mover. We're in luck. We're in luck. I can show you this guy without messing with him too much. He is in shed, so it's not going to be long. But look at this guy. How cool is Ozzy? If I can get a focus on him right as he turns around. So for those of you who don't know, Ozzy is my rough scale python. And he's real cool. I'm so excited to have a rough scale python. I've wanted one for so long and finally found one at the Sacramento Reptile Show. Glenn Reptiles, who's a great breeder to buy any reptile from, had one on his table. It was the only one in the clutch that was ready to go. And so I was happy to pick up this snake. He's real cool. I'm going to put him back because he's not interested in hanging out right now. He wants to shed. So Let me see what the plan is, though. I'm putting him back, and then I'm going to get, I know. I'm going to look and see who else is available. Hang on a second. So I want to show you guys Anya because she's so pretty. But you know, when I first got her, she was a stormtrooper. She was black and white, and now her browns are starting to come in a bit. So she's axanthic. And hi, Mama. This is the mama of the clutch that's currently available to the Horde of Keepers. 2 snakes left from Anya's babies. And so this is what axanthic looks like as an adult. Still very sort of sepia toned. But she's not black and white anymore. She's more like a sepia toned old-timey newspaper color. And I really love this snake. Anya doesn't come out very often. She free roams occasionally. She was free roaming the other day, but usually she would just prefer to stay in her hide. But anytime I bring her out like this, she's just game for it. She's, you know, doesn't struggle, doesn't immediately try to get away. Just kind of is happy to hang out. No problem. She's got a little thing on the top of her head. See this for a second, Mama? Weird. It's like she rubbed her head on something. She's okay though. It's not like an injury. It's just a weird scale thing. A lot of times I see posts on, especially the new ball python groups, Facebook groups, where somebody will see some little scale thing that's off and they'll post a photo and they get really worried. And I understand that. But snakes, little things like that happen. If I can show you the top of Anya's head, I don't know if it'll, see if we can get a focus on it. Oh, you can see. Okay. So you just see that little, like, it looks like there's a weird scale thing going on, right? Right there on her head. But it's not anything to worry about. Like, she's going to shed, and whatever that is, whatever she did that messed up a few scales on the top of her head will go back to normal when she sheds, you know? So most of the time, those little scale things are not a problem. But I do understand, you know, people are worried about scale rot. You know, they hear about these things that snakes can get. And so they see a scale that's kind of off and it's concerning, but it's usually not a problem. They do stuff to their scales, just like we do stuff to our skin. We scratch our skin, things like that. And it heals just fine. But for them, it's usually just, you got to wait till they shed next, and then they'll shed and it'll be fine. Okay. Jake's talking about rough scale pythons in the chat here. Yeah. Hang on. Wait, I was just going to show that, but then I lost it. Oh, there it is. Here we go. Only python with keeled rough scales. His autocorrect said peeled, but keeled is what Jake meant to say. The longest teeth of any python. Yeah, they have big teeth. And only python with absolutely zero black pigment. I don't think I knew that. That's crazy. And at one point, it was thought to be the rarest python on Earth. Still could be. They're pretty. I mean, naturally, possibly the rarest python on Earth. There's a lot of them in captivity now. You know, we've bred them in captivity, but they've got a real interesting story, and I'm going to talk about it in a rough scale python video that I'm going to do at some point. Jake's given out some great information in the chat though on them. So Okay, let's get back to these questions. We're almost through this thing. We got Anya here. She might go up on my hat, or she might just sit on my arm. I wish she would go on my hat because my arm's getting tired of holding her. Okay. Lamont Morphs says, "Hi Bob, I've been co-housing my female ball pythons kept in racks for a few years, and have been surprised how much they seem to take physical comfort in each other. Have you ever co-housed, and what are your thoughts on the subject?" Now, when they wrote this to me, I asked if I wanted to be clear that they're cohabbing these snakes in tubs, and they said yes. Currently, I have 3 pairs cohabbed in V70 tubs. My thinking was they would get stimulus like movement and touch that they would otherwise wouldn't get alone. I'm most surprised how they seem to use each other's weight like a security blanket. I know it's controversial. And then they go on to say some factors to take into account are that I feed them separately and they are free roaming 2 hours a day in a dedicated snake room. Okay, so there's a number of things to talk about here. First of all, yes, I have cohabbed ball pythons before, but they're always babies, and babies seem to do well. Juveniles, young ball pythons seem to do well. It is controversial to cohab ball pythons, and some people do it. Usually when they do it, they have them in, I mean, I shouldn't say usually, but ideally they would have them in a really big cage. I've done a video about cohabbing ball pythons, and what I've said is that if you're going to do it, it should be like a zoo-sized cage. It should be a massive cage where these snakes have the opportunity to get away from each other. I don't think that there would be much controversy with people arguing back and forth about cohabbing 2 snakes in V70 tubs, because really a V70 tub is meant for a breeder who's breeding snakes and managing a lot of snakes because they're breeding. And really that tub is not quite big enough for an adult ball python. You know, I feel okay about housing my ball pythons in V70 tubs because I free roam them. The ones who want to free roam, some don't, but others do. I would say that there wouldn't be many people arguing that putting 2 adult ball pythons in a V70 tub works well for the snake. So what I'm saying is my recommendation is that you separate them. If you've got them in tubs, they need to at least be in their own tub. If you want to cohab them, have them in massive cages, because what you're noticing with them using each other as security blankets is we see this a lot where people say, oh, my snakes cuddle all the time. But what they're doing is they're competing for that heat spot. You know, they're in the back of the tub over the heat tape, and they need to use that. So they're sitting on top of each other because they need to use that. Now, whether they're actually bothered by one another or not, who knows? But we know that a lot of times they are bothered by that situation. They're not going to necessarily fight with one another, but they're just jostling for the right spot. When people cohab their snakes, it's pretty I mean, it would be very difficult to feed if you didn't feed them in separate containers. So you kind of have to do that. If you're cohabbing snakes, you've got to have a feeding situation where you feed them separately. I think pretty much everybody does that cohabs their snakes. And then it's great that you're free roaming your snakes if they want to free roam. That's another thing, is that if you're making them free roam, they may not be comfortable with that. She's not always comfortable free roaming. So I try to let her out anytime it looks like she's ready to come out. I'll open her tub, and if she chooses to come out, that's great. But Anya doesn't always want to free roam. So if I had her in a cage with another snake, and let's say she was feeling a little bit of stress all the time, not enough stress to fight or so that you could visually see that she's having a problem, but she's just feeling stressed because she's in a small enclosure anyway, and she has to share it with another snake of her size. But then 2 hours every day, I'm pulling her out and making her free roam. Then I'm putting her in another stressful situation that she doesn't necessarily want to be in. So I don't know if you're doing that. I'm not saying that you're necessarily pulling them out. I'm just giving a worst case scenario. But so all this to say there are a number of reasons why I would say that my recommendation would be to separate those snakes as soon as possible, because even though they look like they're comforted by each other's presence, they just don't have any choice. They're in an enclosure that is really too small for one snake long term, and now they're having to share it with another snake. So but on the other hand, not on the other hand with this issue, but another side of things is that we have found that in the wild there are times of the year probably that in the wild female ball pythons are coming together. They're finding adult ball pythons together at certain times of the year, but this is in the wild when they're able to go off by themselves. These are mostly solitary animals. Like 95% of the time, they're a solitary animal. They're not living with other ball pythons in the wild. It's not normal for them to do that. So, but I think it's interesting that we are finding that they may be a little bit more social than we once thought that they were. They seem to do well as babies cohab together the first few months of their life. Cohabbed with the clutch. That seems to be okay with them. I don't know that they necessarily do better when they're cohabbed versus in individual tubs as babies, in captivity, I mean. But certainly when they're adults, they definitely need more space and they need time alone. My snakes, when I'm free roaming my adult females, they often will choose to hang out together, but they just as often choose to be out off on their own, and not curling up with one another. So you want them to have that choice. When you have them in the same area, you want them to be able to choose to not be together, and they definitely can't do that in a tub. They're just forced to be next to each other all the time. So that is the reason that I would recommend separating them as soon as possible. It's just going to be better for their life, might not be the answer that you wanted to hear. Let's see. Willie says, do you have any tips for getting rid of gnats in bioactive enclosures? Yes, I do, Willie, and I'm dealing with that right now. So I've had gnats flying around. Like I've been just seeing gnats occasionally for the last couple months, and I see that it's getting late because the lights are starting to turn off. And I've been thinking, if these get to be a problem, I'm going to have to do something about them, but I'm not going to worry about it yet. Well, now I'm opening a couple cages and I'm realizing, oh, there's actually quite a bit of gnats in here. I'm going to have to do something about it. I'm going to show you this little device. I've talked about this on the channel before. Oh, shoot. Forgot. I'm plugged in here. So I have this little device. You can get it on Amazon, and I think it's called different things on Amazon. I have two of them. It's called a catchy. Looks like this. And it's just, when it's plugged in, it gives an ultraviolet light right here that the bugs are attracted to. And this is a fan that sucks them in right here. And then that strip that you see all those bugs on down there, that's a sticky pad at the bottom that they fly into the thing and then it sticks them on the sticky thing. And it works really well. And you can just put that into a cage for a little bit. One time I had a really bad problem with gnats in the inspector's cage, and it was lucky that it was during breeding season. So I put him in with a female for the night and put a catchy in to run for the night, and it just took care of the problem. With snakes that I can't do that with necessarily. I just bring them out for a bit and run the catchy for a while. I may try it. I have a snake that I'm just going to try it. I'm going to monitor things, but they can't really get into it. There's nothing they can hurt themselves on with it. But I might just put it in while the snake's in there and see if they leave it alone, let it run for a while, because those gnats are attracted to that light and they just fly in there. So that's my recommendation. Don't use any kind of spray. Don't use any crazy. I mean, I'm sure you know that already, not to use pesticides or anything, but that's the way to do it. Those catchies work really well. How cool is Anya, right? Let me switch back real quick. Hang on. There we go. Okay, I think we're good. I don't think I've missed any super chats. Am I right about that? Nobody's waiting for me to answer their super chat. Oh, there's one. Crisis had a super chat. Hang on. I'll get to that. Let me just make sure there's not. Okay, there we go. Crisis would like an update on Carol. I'm giving you an update on Carol. So I'll put Anya back while I talk about Carol, and then maybe I can show her. I'm not sure. So Carol, I was real worried about because she went, I only had her for a couple weeks, and all of a sudden she went into her little web sling. Carol is my jumping spider. I didn't say that. There's a lot of people asking who Carol is. Just a little jumping spider. And she went into her sling to molt, and then she came out, and just a few weeks later, she went back into molt again, which seems weird. And I thought, oh my gosh, is she dying? What's going on? Because I don't know spiders very well. So just like a snake that has a little problem with their with their scale, you don't know what's going on. So let's see if we can find Carol together. Hang on. If I can find her and get the camera on her, you might be able to see her. I'm not gonna bring her out of her little. Here's where she lives. Where is she? Oh, she's up top. She's got a lot of webbing there that I just leave up there. But hang on. I mean, that's not really a good shot of her. But she's right up top there, hanging out. Not a good shot. It's so much better when you can see her eyes and she looks cute, but anyway, she's doing good. She molted recently and she looks so much bigger, and she's doing good. She ate a roach the other day. First time she ever ate a roach. That was weird. So there you go. Update on Carol. All right. Carol's pretty cool. I need to do another little video on her. I know that people that are watching my channel aren't looking for spider videos, but Carol's pretty cute. And the occasional jumping spider video, I think, is fine. All right, we're getting back to Patreon questions. Okay, still on Willie's questions. For very food-motivated snakes, such as a Superdorf retic, how does choice-based handling work? Do you tap them with the hook first to get them out of food mode and then wait to see if they want to come out? Or do you just wait for them to come out of food mode on their own? So if they're in food mode, they're not going to do choice-based handling. That's just not the time to do it at all. Tapping them with the hook tells them, hey, I'm coming in to do something. I'm either going to pick you up or I'm going to change your water or do something in your cage. They're generally, so here's what happens. They're in food mode and you tap them with the hook and they go, hey, what's going on? And they kind of flinch and they get out of food mode for a minute, but they're not like in curious traveling mode right there. They're just kind of trying to figure out what just happened, what just snapped them out of this trance that they were in. Think of it as a trance. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're a little bit confused. And so that's not the time that they're going to just curiously crawl onto your hand. So if they're already in food mode, they're not going to get into crawling out on your hand voluntarily mode. You just have to wait for another time to do that. But if you're going to pick them up, take them out of their cage, something like that, you could get them just like I did with Douglas earlier. You know, he was in food mode. I got him out of food mode, but then if I sat there, he crawls out on my hand all the time. But just coming out of food mode from being tapped with a hook, if I put my hand there, there's no way that he would crawl onto my hand. He'd be like, "Let me just get back into my let me go somewhere else to get back into food mode." He probably would have crawled onto his he was on his log. He probably would have crawled onto his cliff to get back into food mode because that's the activity that he was doing, you know. But what I did is I tapped him, got him out of food mode, picked him up so that he wouldn't, you know, he's out of food mode. So he knows my hand isn't food. Picked him up, brought him out here. Now he's in a completely different situation. You give him a minute to relax and figure out the situation. And he goes, okay, let me cruise around. And now he had a good time crawling around a little bit. But I would have had a hard time getting him to voluntarily come out after just being in food mode. So did I talk in circles enough there? Does everybody understand? I feel like I talked for a real long time there. Okay, last question from Willie G. Says, do you like haunted houses, and have you ever been to Halloween Horror Nights? It's a great question. Not only have I been to Halloween Horror Nights, I worked a season as a scare actor at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, and it was the funnest job. It was the year before I wrote a show for Renaissance festivals, before I started touring Renaissance festivals. And it seemed like a fun gig, and they were auditioning for scare actors. And I was like, let me just go and audition for this, and because I could work the Halloween season, you know, let me just see if I can do the thing. So I went and auditioned, and I got it. They hired me, and I got real lucky because usually the new hires as scare actors end up in a haunted house working like inside a wall. Just as somebody walks out, they pop out, you know, they're just their whole night, they're just popping out at people. I got really lucky because they hired me to be one of the upfront scare actors. So if you've ever been to Hollywood Horror Nights, you walk in, and as you walk into the entrance, there are scare actors just running around through the crowd doing crazy stuff to scare people, following people, doing all this crazy stuff. And I got to be one of those guys, and it's the best. Like sneaking up on somebody and then scaring, they like scream, and then they walk forward like to get away from you, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of them, and because they didn't expect that you were going to continue. It was the funnest thing, but exhausting. I'm not a night owl person, and you're working till 2-3 in the morning every night, so it wasn't ideal timing for me, but it was so fun. And I thought, oh, I'll probably do this again, even though it sucks for my sleep. I'll probably keep doing it. But then I figured, I wrote a show for Renaissance festivals, and I started doing that instead. But also my other experience with Hollywood Horror Nights, not usually something that I would just go to voluntarily because the crowds are too big for me to just attend as an audience member. However, I have attended every year for the last 6 years, something like that. Because so Lucy, maybe not 6 years, maybe maybe we took a break for COVID, I don't know. But anyway, so Lucy, who you guys know as my snake babysitter, I got to know them when I was teaching music at a music studio. She took a group class, a ukulele class. I was teaching ukulele at this studio at the time, and she was like 11 years old at the time, and I got to know her mom. And we, you know, I would just see them when they were in class, but I got to know her mom a little bit. And at one point, she wasn't doing anything with snakes. She didn't know that I had snakes or anything at that. But at some point, her mom messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm taking Lucy to Hollywood Horror Nights." Lucy was probably 12 or 13 at this point. No, she would have been. This was before she started working with the snakes at 12. So it would have been before this. Maybe she was 10 when I started teaching her. I don't know. But the point is this. her mom messaged me and said, hey, I'm taking Lucy to Hollywood Horror Nights. And I gave her the option of bringing a friend, whoever she wanted to go with. And she says she would like you to go with. And it made me feel so good that she chose me to go with her, because the deal was that her mom, Maria, gets real scared and she does not want to go into these haunted houses. So she needed somebody to go through the haunted house with Lucy. And so I did that. Like, we did that every year for a long time. And we probably started before COVID. I don't remember what the timeline was, but we've done it every year except this year, because this year she went with her boyfriend. And it was the first year that her mom didn't go with her and I didn't go with her. And they had a good time. They went with a group of friends. So that was fun. But that's kind of been the tradition every year. That's been my Halloween tradition, is I'm going to Hollywood Horror Nights with Lucy and Maria, and it's going to be exhausting. And we're going to go through every single haunted house and do some of the rides also. And, but it's always fun. We have a good time. So yes, is my answer to that question. Have I ever been to Hollywood Horror Nights? Yes. It's great. Okay. We got two more. We probably have more than 2 questions left, but 2 more people from the Horde of Keepers that have submitted questions to this that we're going to get to in a moment. I'm going to check the chat for super chats. I think I'm caught up. Great. All right. Who have we missed? Who was I going to get that I haven't gotten out yet? Somebody asked for Bella. I mean, so we're into the evening. This is probably not a good time to get Bella. I've never been bit by Bella, and I've never even been close to bit by Bella. But here's the deal. She's right below this. She's down here in this cage. But imagine she's in a sky hide right here. And whenever I go in to get her, I just reach up into that sky hide and I put my fingers in to feel for her to make sure she's up there. And then if she is, I pull out the sky hide and I get her. But there's a good chance that if I stick my finger into that sky hide right now, it's going to be bit. So carpet pythons are very food motivated at night. So I'm not going to do that. But maybe another snake. Who else? Hang on. The inspector, that's going to be a tough snake to get right now. The inspector, we don't see the inspector on live streams very often, just because he's usually, he's actually peeking out. I can see his head right now, but I'm guessing that his body, so he's on a double-decker hide. Let me see what you guys see right now. So he's, oh, can you see him? Nope, you can't. But that yellow mark, that might be him right there. Nope. Yeah. I think that's his nose right there. Anyway, the point is he's in a double-decker hide. And if I take the top off, he's just going to go back into the bottom, and then I got to screw up all of his dirt to try to get to him. You don't need to know the logistics of it. The point is, it's difficult to get to the inspector right now. He is interested in food. I'm never worried about him biting me. I don't even think he would give me a food bite. But he definitely doesn't want to hang out. If he crawled out of his hides, if he crawled out of everything to move around, I'd get him out. So we'll see if he does that. And then, oh, Kata. Yeah, we could see Kata. I bet I could bring Kata out. Bearded Bullets. I just showed a bunch of new babies. Well, not just. It's been a while. But let's see. Let's see what Kata's up to. Hang on. Kata was out earlier today free roaming, and she started causing trouble, so she had to go back in her cage because she was figuring out one place. I mentioned that there are a couple places that I don't want the ball pythons to go, And one of the places that I really don't want them to go is behind these cages. And I have some ways that I've blocked them from getting behind those cages. Because the problem is those are heavy cages. Those are all bioactive cages with layers of dirt. They're super heavy. That whole stack is super heavy. And if I have to move them out to retrieve a ball python, it's a lot of work. And so this one, Miss Kada, right here, figured out how to get back there. And so I caught her a couple times today trying to get herself back there. And I was like, no way. So I had to put her back in her cage, and hope that she forgets about that. Hope that she's not now obsessed with going back there, because that's what they do. They find a place, they become obsessed with it, and they remember it. You know, ball pythons have good memories. So, oh no, I'm drinking coffee. Why am I drinking coffee this late at night? That's ridiculous. Anyway, she was in a timeout because she was trying to get behind all those cages. By the way, you guys, let me tell you about a thing that changed my life that I just finally finished setting up today. I have a lot of snakes in this room, and on water changing day, what I normally do is I have a gallon jug that I fill with water, and I have a bucket, and I come out and I start taking water dishes, and I dump the old water into the bucket and fill the new water with a gallon jug. Do that a few times, and I go and fill the gallon jug up again in the bathroom sink and come back, and it's this whole crazy process. What I got was a little T valve for my shower, and I got an adapter, a 1/2-inch adapter that could screw into that T valve. Like, I got my shower on one side of the T valve, this adapter on the other that can screw into the T valve, and the other end can screw into a garden hose. And I have one of those flexible garden hoses that are pretty small, but they get pretty big. I think it's 40 feet or something. And now I have a garden hose that I can bring through here and not only fill up water dishes, but water all the plants. Just it's changed my life. I did it for the first time today. It's so much easier. If you have a lot of snakes in a snake room, get a garden hose. Hook up a garden hose to your shower or your tap or something. It's well worth it. That's my number one recommendation of the day. Kate is doing so well, by the way. She, it used to be, before we did all that work with her to get her to go on the red carpet with Thea, with Zelina Vega. Before we did all that work, I would have put her on my shoulders and she would have backed up. She would have been a problem snake. Now she's only a problem because she's grabbing my ear things. Hey, lady. Oh my gosh. She's just about to pull my ears out. Oh, got it. Okay. Anyway, she's so much better now. By the way, I heard from Thea, some people were saying there are people that watch WWE. I don't, but I heard from a bunch of people, hey, I saw Kata on WWE today. That was really cool. And I was like, the only thing I did was that red carpet thing with her. But apparently she was in Florida, and she's got a friend in Florida that has ball pythons, and they did a shoot with her and her husband, who's also a pro wrestler, WWE wrestler. And I forget his name. But anyway, one of them was a big leucistic snake, looked just like Kata. And so people thought it was Kata. But I texted Thea, and I was like, hey, did you guys use footage from the red carpet, or what did you do? And then I looked at footage and realized it's not Kata. But I just heard from Thea, and she said that she's going to be back in LA relatively soon. And if I'm in town when she's back, we're going to do a little Green Room Pythons episode with her. That'll be fun, I think. Okay. Kata has just completely messed up my situation. Oh, I know what it is. I get it. Okay. We're back to normal. All right, let me check this and then we'll get back to these questions. We're almost done with the questions. I'm just taking my own sweet time with it. How cool is Kata though, right? Okay. I have not missed any super chats. All right, back to the questions. Here we go. Where are we at? Okay, Scott asks, "Hey Bob, I'm having issues with feeding my 2 ball pythons. My older one was feeding on live small rats, but I'm trying to transition it to frozen thawed, and my younger one isn't wanting to eat. It's been 2 weeks since either of them have eaten, and I even tried the paper bag method to see if they would eat, and they didn't. That paper bag method is just putting them in a paper bag by themselves to see if they'll eat. Handling them is kept to a minimum, especially a day before they eat. I don't want to do live rats or mice for the safety of the snakes, and the temps and humidity are well in range." Um, so after asking the questions, what I found out is that he's had the older one for 2 weeks and the younger one for a couple months. So they're both new snakes. Um, so uh, Scott, first of all, you know, you don't even need to try to feed your new snake for the first 2 weeks. You know, that's fine. Let them hang out for a week or two before you even offer food. But that paper bag method, no reason to do that unless your snake hasn't eaten for months. You know, so 2 weeks is totally fine for a ball python. That's a normal feeding schedule for most ball pythons. This one eats once every 3 weeks. She doesn't see a meal uh, for 3 weeks. So you're not there's no danger there right now. These are just new snakes to you, and it sounds like the older one that's brand new just needs more time to get used to their cage. So just wait a week and try to offer again. But also, it sounds like that one is used to eating live, and you're trying to feed frozen thawed, which is not the way to go for their first meal or two. So what you want to do is feed them exactly what they're used to eating so that they recognize it as food. And so they go, okay, this is where I live. This is my new home. And the food that I know is food and I'm used to eating comes into this cage also and comes into my home also, just like before. So that's what you want to do. You've probably heard horror stories of feeding live. Um, the horror stories you hear are because people put live rodents in and just leave them in, and then they become problems. But the majority of ball pythons in the world are fed live. In captivity, are fed live meals, and they do just fine. I don't feed live, but if I need to, and sometimes I do need to, I have no problem doing it. I just watch it, and if the snake doesn't eat in between 10 minutes to half an hour, if they don't eat, then you just take the rat out. But you want to get that new snake going on what they're used to eating right now. And then once you've established that they'll take a meal, you feed them 2 live meals, then you can transition to frozen thawed. But it's going to be real tough for a snake who's in a new situation. They're a little bit stressed anyway because they're not in the home that they're used to, and now they're being fed something that they don't recognize as food. They're just not recognizing it as food. So that's the situation. And then the other one, the other one hasn't taken a meal for the last couple of weeks. Really not that big of a deal. Just normally you don't have to be that careful about not handling snakes. I just did a video where I talked about, a lot of times people don't want to handle the snake the day of feeding, and that's usually not necessary at all. Most snakes do just fine. I could handle Kata, put her back in her tub, and then give her a meal. Like, it's not a problem at all. But if you have a snake that's just not eating at all, you want to keep handling to a minimum just because you want to keep the general stress down. So, just make sure their parameters are good. They have plenty of security, stuff like that. And then it's just being patient. 2 weeks is not that long for a ball python at all. Uh, so there we go. So that's that. But it's I mean, I understand you not wanting to feed live, but you need to. For a new snake that's used to eating live, you got to do that for the first couple meals. So sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get lucky where you buy a snake from a breeder who's been feeding live. They've never seen a frozen thawed, and you offer a frozen thawed and they just take it. But that's the exception to the rule. That's pretty rare. Usually you've got a transition period. Okay. Melissa asks, this is the last question, you guys. Melissa says, I have a lovely, well-tempered 1-year-old super dwarf. Vi is long and slim, and I'm scared I'm going to lose her when we interact. She'll come out onto my hand, crawl around, and every time all I can think is that I have to be on alert not to lose her. Where's her head? Where's the rest of her? Is she going down my back? Is she headed to the floor? We have other snakes, but Violet is the only one who I can't shake the feeling that I'm going to lose her. Yeah, Melissa, that's a good feeling that you have for that super dwarf retic because you absolutely can lose them, and they are long and thin, and you got to know where their head is all the time. So, with Kata right now, she's in my lap. I'm not watching her. It doesn't matter. She's not going to go anywhere. When I handle my super dwarf retics, especially as they get bigger and longer, you're always going, where is their head? What could their head possibly hook around? Because as soon as they hook their head around something, they're going to pull the rest of themselves, and then they're off. So you're right about that instinct. You could, I mean, lose them. You could end up sort of fighting with them as they've tangled themselves into something. But you want to make sure that you know where their head is at all times. What could they possibly reach? Because if they can reach anything, they're going to. So yeah, probably didn't make you feel any better, except that you have your fears are founded. Those are that's a good fear to have, because otherwise you I don't think you'd lose that snake. Like, it's not like they're gonna crawl off your neck and then all of a sudden you turn around and they're gone, but you'll turn around and they'll be wrapped around something that you then have to detangle them from, and that's annoying because they're real good at fighting you. They're really good at staying on something that they want to stay on, and as the snake gets bigger and longer, there's just more things that they can reach. So that's that. Let's see where we're at. You guys, we are almost 3.5 hours in. Welcome, Sav. I just saw that Sav just made it in. I'm just looking at the chats on YouTube right now. You guys, we got to figure out this situation where the software can't see super chats. That's such a problem. I mean, it's not a problem for you guys because I'll make it work. I'll switch back and forth if I need to, but I shouldn't have to, right? Like, the software, if the software can monitor the chat, but the only thing it misses is every time somebody sends you money for a comment, like, you would think that would be the most important thing to monitor. And it's opposite with this. So we'll get this figured out. How's the sound though? Do you guys feel like the sound is improved from other live streams? Put that in the chat. Hang on. Oh, whoops. Now I've completely. Oh, I got it. Okay. Also, when you're dealing with new software, just figuring out how it works. Okay. All right. I'm going to put Kata back because she's heavy, and I don't want to put her down right now. I want her back in her cage rather than free roaming. But look how great she is. She's so good with me now. I didn't work with, I hadn't been working with her much before she did that thing with Thea. And then we did a bunch of that work, and it just made her totally okay with hanging out. She still would rather be off on her own, but this, just chilling right here, hanging out, is great. Not something that she normally would do. So I'm glad that we were kind of forced to work with her for a couple weeks before her big red carpet debut. All right, Mama. Hang on, almost there. Almost there. Okay. Well, here's some black-headed pythons. I don't know if David's still with us, but David at Hog Strickers wanted to see black-headed pythons. Let me see if I can get Banjo out at this time of day. I know Maya would be a danger to get out. I just opened Banjo's cage, and we'll see if he comes out. I was going to just pick him up and bring him out, but what I realized is that he likes to tunnel under his hide and then come out the top. He has a top entrance hide, but he uses the entrance that he made at the bottom, and he's under his hide and on top of his hide right now. So not a snake that I can just easily pick up. So let's see what he does. We'll just watch him. I wonder if I can put a flashlight on him. Let's see if this works. Oh my gosh, I just flashed that in my eyes and now I can't see anything. I just blinded myself. I've got this really high powered flashlight. All right. I don't know if that works or not. I can't see. You know how when you blind yourself with a flashlight, then you can see stuff, but everything that you're trying to look at is just a big green dot. That's what I did to myself just then. So I don't know if that light is helpful for you guys or not to see him. Wait till we do the 24-hour live stream. This is going to be, hopefully the kinks in the software will be worked out at that time. Does this make any difference? Hang on, let's see. It does. It does make a difference. Anyway, just going to leave it like that for now. Oh, he's got his head out. I don't know what you guys can see because I'm seeing a bit of a smaller view. But he's got his head out trying to figure out what he wants to do. Once he's easily grabbable, I'll give it a try. I don't know if he's in food mode right now or not. We'll see. As soon as I touch him, I'll know. Black-headed python food mode looks a lot different than every other python food mode. And you usually can't just tell by their body language when you're looking at them. At least with mine. And I think it's probably the same with other black-headed pythons. They're active hunters, so they don't do ambush hunting behavior. And you also can't see their eyeballs because everything is black on their head. So you can't tell based on how big their pupils are, and you can't tell based on their ambush behavior because they don't do ambush behavior. So it's usually not until you touch their back that you know that they're in food mode. So they either whip around and try to bite you or they arch really, really heavily. Let me flip real quick. See where we're at here. Hi to those of you who have made it late. You thought you weren't going to make it, but we're still going. We're not going to go much longer, but we'll go for a little bit. We will go for a little bit. All right. Let me see if I think he's still in that hide that same way, but I can't tell. Hang on. Let me look. Yeah, he is. He's got, hey, bud. Can you move through that hide, please, so I can get you? Come on. Yeah, you're looking for food. I know you're looking for food. I get it. But get out of that hide. Come on. Come on. Go. Banjo, you know, I think Maya's behavior is more common for black-headed pythons. It's hard to know for sure because I only have 2 black-headed pythons. But Maya, I'm always very I'm not super concerned because I don't really care if she bites me or not, but I don't really want to be bit by her, and I know that there's always a big possibility if she's in food mode. Banjo has never even almost bit me. Well, that's not true. He gets super defensive when he's in shed, and he bluff strikes, but he's never actually chomped down on me. But when only when he's in shed, he gets defensive, but he's never even almost bit me in food mode before. So, but I also don't handle him at night usually. So here we go. Looks like he's almost, he's so long, you guys. He's just now getting his tail out of that hide, but he's still under. Oh no, he's completely out of the hide now. Okay, so I can grab him. Hang on. Hey, pal. Why are you so long, huh? Why are you so big lately? Yeah. Oof. Got you. Look how big Banjo is. That's a big snake. He's not as big as Maya, but he's not small either. We're gonna pair them up. Sometime in this coming year, we're gonna pair them up. So he's acting a little bit different, a little bit weird. He just looked at my arm and tongue flicked at it like it might be food, but he didn't do anything. I think he wanted to be hunting, and then I pulled him out of that, and he was like, dude, I want to keep hunting. What are you doing? You know, I don't know that black-headed pythons and womas, because they're active hunters, I don't know that they have, I mean, they definitely have a food mode, but no, I guess I'm thinking of how I work with Maya. If I need to bring Maya out and she's in food mode, I use a hook, and that usually works. But it's still a little bit different. Their brains are a little bit different than ambush hunting pythons. You know, they want to go into active hunting behavior as soon as possible. It seems like they're kind of always about active hunting. And it's not just at nighttime, it's during the day. They do it. They kind of, in the wild, they're diurnal and nocturnal at different times of the year, and it just depends on what the prey items are doing, what their prey is doing at that time of year. So they'll hunt and sleep anytime, depending on when they're going to be the most successful. And so they're just they just act very different than other pythons. They're really interesting. I like them a lot. Okay. Happy Halloween, everybody. Robo G7, happy Halloween. I'm reading these on the YouTube page, so I can't highlight them. Just recently found your channel and really enjoy your content. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Banjo's pulling my ear thing out. So annoying. Thanks, Robo G7. I'm glad you're finding the channel a valuable resource. I appreciate that. And welcome. Glad you found it. Happy Halloween, everyone. What are you guys doing for Halloween tomorrow? Are you gonna turn off your porch light like me and pretend like you're not home? I don't think I need to do that. Last year was my first year here for Halloween, and I was ready for kids. I had all the candy, and guess what? I had no kids, and guess what happened to the candy? I freaking ate it all, because of course I did. Of course I ate bags of candy. over the course of just a few days, like just shoving candy into my face for a few days because I had it here. I couldn't throw it away. So this year I'm going to plan to not have kids and not buy bags and bags of candy because I think that's better for my personal health. If I don't have, if I have candy or cookies or anything just lying around, I'm going to eat them all. All right, bud. He's now in my lap. He obviously crawled off my shoulders. And now he's tangled in the chair and on my lap. Hi, pal. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Can I dust your head off? Here's another thing about black-headed pythons that I love is at least both of mine are not head shy at all. I can grab their head. They have no problem with it. I can grab. I do this often with Maya. Maya digs under her dirt so much that she's often driving herself around with a little gravel hat. She's got like rocks on top of her head and dust. So I'm often grabbing her face and just dusting her head off, and she doesn't mind at all. Banjo doesn't really mind it either. They're just different snakes. These black-headed pythons. He's really good at getting tangled in this chair. I'm not going to get him out. I gotta wait till he gets himself out, I think. All right. Well, he'll figure it out, I guess. Okay. Switching back to the YouTube page. It's just weird that I have to switch back and forth to get all the comments and whoops. And also reading the comments on YouTube seems to be easier than this program that I'm in. So it's a bummer because I'm using a program called Riverside, which is supposed to be like the premier thing to use if you're live streaming or podcasting or whatever. And there's a lot about it that's great, but there seems like a lot of things that I got to figure out. Okay. So anyway, we're pretty close to done with this, you guys. I'm just fooling around with this app now. As I said, by the way, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button if you would, because we're going to be at 100,000 very soon. And I wanted to just for me, I wanted to be at 100,000 before the channel hits the 5-year mark. And about a month ago, it looked like we weren't quite on track for that, and I probably wasn't going to hit it. But then all of a sudden, I started getting more subscribers. I don't know why, but the subscribers started going up. So it looks like I probably am going to hit that now, which is just, again, it makes no difference for the channel. It's just a thing it would be fun to say that I hit 100,000 before 5 years. So I think the first video on the channel went up like December 8th of 2000. So if I can hit 100,000 subscribers before then, that's what we're looking to do. And I think it's probably going to happen. But if you're not subscribed and you want to help out that goal, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And then so the deal is that probably whatever the normal live stream is going to be after I hit 100,000, that's probably going to be the 24-hour live stream. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but that could be next month's live stream, might be the 24-hour one, or maybe it's the one after that, or maybe I do a special one. I don't know. But it's looking like next month's live stream might end up being 24 hours. So we'll see. We're going to have people in the green room. We're going to have remote guests. We're going to have surprises, giveaways, all kinds of shenanigans. And look at this. I got my black-headed python back. He untangled himself from the chair. So I'm gonna put him back, and then Let me double check for super chats again before we sign off. Oh shoot. Okay. You guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. I certainly did. And it looks like I haven't missed any other super chats. I will read your comments tomorrow. It looks like the chat's been going crazy. Hope you guys have a great Halloween. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time, maybe for 24 hours. All right. Bye, everybody.